Chapter 208. This tombstone was already so extraordinary. What kind of existence was the ancient tomb behind the tombstone? What kind of peerless geniuses and unparalleled heroes were buried in the ancient tomb? Why was such an ancient tomb not erected anywhere else but in the southern barbarian land? This was one of the reasons. Also, the wasteland of withered bones where the underworld crow king lived in the north. The skeletons there could no longer be described with more than one word. The accumulated skeletons in the wasteland were almost immeasurable. What was even more terrifying was that even a tree like the 10,000 bones devouring tree could grow. Without the nourishment of hundreds of millions of skeletons, it was almost impossible. And in the wasteland there was not only one tree, but dozens and hundreds of them. Hundreds of millions of skeletons. Perhaps this was just a conservative number. Moreover, the 10,000 bones devouring tree where the underworld crow king lived probably couldn't grow without hundreds of millions of skeletons. Although de Chertion didn't know how the trees in the wasteland grew, he could feel that stepping on them was as if he was standing on countless skeletons. The cold and gloomy aura made one's hair stand on end. How many creatures had fallen to form such a wasteland, and how it was formed? This was a mystery, a question that de Chertion didn't even dare to think about. If he were to get to the bottom of it, perhaps it would involve the ancient era. It involved the most original secret of the Zijin continent. That was fine. Back then, when he was chasing the Rat King, he went all the way down and actually found the ancient ruins buried deep under the southern barbarian land. How were the ruins formed, and what kind of big secrets were contained in it? He didn't know these. He instinctively felt a dangerous aura about the ruins and couldn't even step in. This was really an earth-shattering mysterious place. All of this seemed to be constantly revealing to him that there were great secrets hidden in the southern barbarian land. Mysterious, it was really too mysterious. Accumulating one by one in his heart made him full of doubts. Therefore, whenever he was free, he would always guess the meaning of the existence of the southern barbarian land. How many secrets were buried in the southern barbarian land? The entire southern barbarian seemed to be covered in a layer of mysterious fog, making it impossible for people to see through it. Perhaps Zhu Er's elder sister should be able to give me some answers. De Chertion thought to himself. It was undeniable that he had a curious mentality in his bones. He had an impulse to get to the bottom of all kinds of mysterious things and uncover their mysterious veils. Of course, even saints were unable to abandon their 7 emotions and 6 desires, let alone him. Really? Brother D, you've finally agreed. The vermilion bird cried out in surprise. Then, she excitedly said, Zhu Er thought that you would continue to refuse. Great, Zhu Er's mission has finally been completed. Let's see if Big Sister won't praise me now. As it shouted, it flapped its wings and flew up and down in front of de Chertion. He seemed very excited. Don't worry, I just came back and there are some things I need to take care of in the valley. I can't go with you right away. What's more, there's still a matter that has been delayed for more than a year that hasn't been solved yet. His eyes flashed with a sharp light, faintly hiding a strong killing intent. He opened his mouth and said to the outside of the cave, Susu, quickly come to my cave residence to see me. His voice contained a trace of demonic vitality. Along with the breeze, it rushed out of the cave residence and quickly passed to a pool not far from the waterfall in the valley. It kept echoing in the valley. It seemed to be unusually long. The king is calling me. With a splash, a wave rushed up from the pool. Along the wave, a white python with a body of 50 or 60 feet long and thicker than a bucket rushed out. The scales on the white python were unusually fine and snow-white. Under the reflection of the light, it looked like a gem. It looked strangely beautiful. The white python waved its tail and looked at the cave residence where de Chertion was. A trace of joy appeared in its eyes. It quickly rushed forward. It swam on the ground at a fast speed. Even if someone saw it, they would only see a white shadow flashing in front of their eyes. My king, are you looking for Susu? Not long after, Bai Susu entered the cave residence. At a glance, she saw Di sitting in front of her. She said respectfully, Susu, you don't have to be so formal. I called you over just to ask you how you've done what I ordered you to do when I left the southern barbarian. Di naturally emitted a dignified aura, causing Bai Susu to not dare to be negligent at all. Hearing his words, a trace of coldness appeared in her eyes. She said, My king, please rest assured. I've already done what you asked me to do. I've led my clansmen to dig underground day and night. As you expected, there are thousands of stinky rats hiding in the southern barbarian land. They have dug countless tunnels underground. However, I've recently explored the rat's nest. As long as my king gives the order, Susu is willing to be the vanguard. I'll lead my clansmen to kill underground. When speaking of rats, Bai Susu obviously showed a kind of disgust. Snakes and rats were natural enemies. One of the favorite food of snakes was rat. Good, you've done a good job this time. When you kill that rat, I'll naturally reward you. Di nodded in a deep voice. That's right. Back then, when he was chasing the Rat King, he originally wanted to see why the group of rats suddenly had such amazing defensive power. It was as if they had increased several times in an instant, and their vitality was incomparably tenacious. Moreover, at that time, it seemed that this effect would not last long. This meant that there must be some other reason for the great increase in defensive power. That was why he followed all the way to the underground. He didn't expect that the Rat King was so cunning. Instead of running to its nest, it took him to the underground ruins and wanted to use the power of the ruins to kill him. At that time, it was because of the ruins that he lost the Rat King. As for the Rat King, it could be said that Sakura had never underestimated it. Since the sneak attack on the Myriad Demon Valley and the pursuit of Little White, it had long been on his kill list. Therefore, even if he had to leave the southern barbarian lands, he still didn't give up this plan. According to the order of Bai Susu, he asked her to lead her clansmen to dig a tunnel from the ground to the underground. It would be best if they could find the real nest of the Rat King. When he came back, he would deal with it again. My king, these are all my duties. I dare not ask for a reward. Bai Susu was overjoyed when she heard the praise, but she said softly, Let's talk about this later. In the underground, only you and I have combat power. Tomorrow, you and I will go to the underground together. Yes, I'll take my leave for now. Bai Susu left. Although Little White and Vermilion Bird were also in the cave, they just watched from the side and didn't interrupt. They just watched Di deal with things. Because Di couldn't go to the 100 Flowers Valley immediately, Vermilion Bird didn't leave but stayed in the valley to play with Little White. Both of them were children. After playing together for a short while, they became familiar with each other and had a lot of fun. They chattered about all kinds of interesting things and played in the valley. As a result, the valley became more lively. Speaking of the Myriad Demon Valley, after a year of reproduction, the number of living creatures in the valley was not small at all. Back then, tens of thousands of people were brought in, and the number of snakes was even greater. There were as many as 100,000 of them. Now that they had multiplied, they were even more incredible. The ape clan had added a total of 10,000 little monkeys. The wolf pack was also huge. There were originally thousands of wolves, but now there were tens of thousands of them. These wolves usually only lived in the valley. If they wanted to hunt, they would go out of the valley to fight with other beasts. They didn't just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' work. Only the skills that were trained on the edge of life and death were the most useful. There were tens of thousands of eagles. Bai Susu's clansmen were the most numerous. They were all distributed in the entire Demon's Valley. It was worth mentioning that after seeing that Baiwe and the others had clansmen, Chihua left the valley alone for a period of time. When he came back, he brought back a herd of bison. Ordinary beasts could only be used as breeding target. The ones that really needed to be cultivated were those spirit beasts that had the potential to break away from the ignorant state of ordinary beasts and develop spirituality. Only this kind could become a true demon clan. According to statistics, there were now 5,000 to 6,000 spirit beasts that had developed spirituality among all the clans in the valley. This didn't seem to be a lot. In fact, thinking about the probability of ordinary beasts developing spirituality, this was already quite an incredible number. This was still based on de Chertien's order before he left. When the monkey wine was brewed, it was mixed with water and given to the clansmen to drink. It improved their physique. In addition, the spiritual chi in the southern barbarians was abundant. The spiritual chi in the Demon's Valley was more abundant than outside. If these 5,000 to 6,000 spirit beasts that had just developed spirituality were properly cultivated and developed, the Demon's Valley would be able to form a scale and establish a foundation for a real force. In this regard, de Chertien could be said to be farsighted. As it turned out, this was not wrong. It was the right thing to do. He cultivated in seclusion for a night in the cave residence, recovered his demonic essence, and continued to refine the bodies in the demon refining tripod. He refined the essence chi and essence blood. The essence chi was transformed into demonic essence, and the essence blood was integrated into the body. The next morning, Baisusu was waiting in front of the cave residence early. Walking out of the cave residence, he saw Baisusu and nodded slightly, saying, "Let's go. You lead the way. We'll catch the rats. I'd like to know what secrets there are in this group of rat." Since they had already come to an agreement, there was no need for further elaboration. Thus, Zhang Xian gestured for Baisusu to lead the way. The hole that she was going to dig wasn't in the valley but outside. After all, if she were to dig a hole in the valley, the Rat King might just be able to exploit it. They passed through the passage with ease and left the Demon's Valley. Not long after, under Baisusu's lead, they came to a huge ancient tree. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 209. The ancient tree was abnormally tall, and its trunk was so thick that several adults would have to hold hands to hug it. Of course, in the southern barbarian lands, such an ancient tree was not deliberately cut down or destroyed. Moreover, it was full of spiritual energy and was nourished day and night. It was hard for it not to grow. In the southern barbarian lands there were many trees that were even thicker than this one. Whoosh! Baisusu swung her tail and swept away a huge rock that was originally standing in front of the ancient tree. The rock fell to the side and was shattered by the huge force. At the spot where the rock originally stood, there was a huge hole. Standing in front of the hole, one could see that the hole was extending deep underground. It was rugged and dark inside. "Your Majesty, this is the hole that your subordinate dug. This is one of the entrances. There are 2 other entrances in other places. Your subordinate will lead the way." Baisusu was faintly proud of the tunnel in front of her. A tunnel like this couldn't be completed in a day. It was difficult to understand how much effort it took if one didn't see it with their own eyes. The entrance of the cave was big enough to accommodate Sakra's shrunken normal body, and it still seemed very spacious. Without saying much, Baisusu entered the cave first and led the way. Sakra also followed closely behind. The underground was pitch black, and there wasn't a single ray of light in the cave. However, as long as they wanted to, this darkness wasn't a problem. Even spirit beasts that had just given birth to spirituality were sufficiently adapted to the darkness and could completely see it as if it was daytime. As soon as they entered, the direction of the cave began to extend downwards. It was like a slope that kept going deeper and deeper into the ground. At first, it didn't feel much, but after walking for a while, de Chertien could clearly feel that there seemed to be empty tunnels around the heaven and earth cave. "Your Majesty, The rats dug countless tunnels underground and connected them all over the place. This tunnel originally passed through some other tunnels, but your subordinates secretly blocked them to prevent the rats from discovering this tunnel. If we keep going down, we will be able to reach the nest of the big rat. However, your subordinate once discovered a strange thing in its nest. Seeing that she was the only one following the king, Baisusu couldn't help but feel excited. She softly described the situation underground. Strange? If there's anything strange about it, tell me about it. Deshurtian replied while thinking about the group of rats underground. He thought to himself, these rats have completely turned the underground into their own paradise. The tunnels are connected together and can be called an underground kingdom. If he really wanted to count, he didn't know how many rats there were underground. Was it 1,000,000 or 10,000,000? With regards to this, even he felt that it was somewhat troublesome just thinking about it. The Rat King had to be eliminated. However, it would be difficult to exterminate the underground rat. Furthermore, exterminating them was not what he wanted. There are thousands of species in the world, and each of them has its own reason for existing. The fact that the rats could develop to this stage is not simple. They don't necessarily need to be exterminated. Perhaps I can use other methods to make them work for me. Deshurtian thought to himself. At the same time, Baisusu began to talk about the strange things she had encountered in the past. Your Majesty, when your subordinate was digging the tunnel, I dug all the way to the nest of the big rat. After digging through, I came to investigate a few times and found that the stinky rat often returned to a secret chamber beside its nest. At that time, your subordinate was curious, so I dug the tunnel to the secret chamber again. However, I found something strange. At the end of the tunnel, the soil in front of me was abnormally hard. With my ability, I couldn't dig through it at all. Your subordinate guessed that there must be some secret hidden in the secret chamber. To be able to give birth to a spirit in a remote place like Tiger Hill, where the spiritual energy was not very dense, meant that her aptitude was extraordinary. Even among the monster clan, her innate intelligence was higher than that of other monster clan members. After all these years, Baisusu's intelligence was not inferior to that of humans at all. Moreover, as a woman, she was naturally very meticulous and cautious. She did almost everything that was given to her properly. This time, when she was digging the tunnel, she encountered something and wanted to explore more. It was because of this that she discovered the existence of the secret chamber. Oh, the soil is abnormally hard? Deshurtian muttered to himself. Obviously, he was very concerned about this sentence. Not to mention, Deshurtian and the others were moving along the tunnel, preparing to find the Rat King. Coincidentally, the Rat King was talking with the Rat King. The Rat King was sitting on the throne, but it seemed that he was quite irritated. His two small eyes flashed with fear from time to time. General Rat, did you see the Black Tiger King of the Myriad Demon Valley come back with your own eyes? Didn't that damn fiend leave? Why did he come back? The whiskers around the Rat King's mouth kept trembling as he anxiously scolded General Rat in front of him. Speaking of Rat King, it seemed that he had gained a lot of benefits over the past year. His size was much smaller than the Rat King's, about the size of a leopard. However, his fur had turned khaki-colored, similar to the Rat King's. Judging from the aura on its body, it probably already had the strength of a mid-level spiritual monster. He seemed to have the aura of a general, with a hint of fierceness. However, in front of the Rat King, he was still as humble as before. My lord, it can't be wrong. At that time, I was leading a large group of rats to the ground to find some food. I saw the Black Tiger King of the Myriad Demon Valley suddenly become as big as a small mountain and roared. I was close to it, so I was directly shocked by its roar and fainted. As for him, this subordinate would never mistake him for someone else. It must be the Black Tiger King, General Rat said solemnly. Then, he became worried and squeaked, Your Majesty, what should we do now? Your Majesty has offended him in the past. I've asked around. The little white tiger that you wanted to catch back then was his sister. Your Majesty, let's escape and leave this place. At the end of his speech, Rat Big's words naturally revealed a fearful expression. Both the Rat King and Rat King were instinctively afraid of Chertion. The scene back then was still vivid in their minds. God, he chased them all the way from the surface to the underground. If the Rat King had not played a trick and escaped from the ruins, they would have died under Chertion's claws. Back then, when they knew that he had left the southern barbarian lands, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, they no longer had the thought of finding trouble with the myriad Demon Valley. They were afraid, they were afraid. Squeak, squeak. Escape? Where can we escape to? Besides, we don't have to escape at all. The Black Tiger King is powerful on the surface, and I can't defeat him. However, the underground is the world of our rat clan. It's my kingdom. Even if he wants to find me, he definitely can't come down. At most, I'll fight it out with him. It cursed in its heart, but it still felt quite safe underground. As long as you give me some time, I can swallow the divine bead into my stomach. At that time, I will be the king of the southern barbarian lands, the Rat King suddenly said. Rat King suddenly said. He didn't know where his confidence came from, but the moment he mentioned the God Pearl, his aura immediately changed and became quite excited. It was as if he could be the only one in the world with the divine bead. Congratulations to your Majesty for mastering the divine technique as soon as possible. Rat King immediately flattered. He said it quite smoothly. Obviously, he had done this kind of thing often. Squeak, squeak. Good, there will be a reward. Today, you will come with me to the altar and bathe in the divine light. The Rat King looked very happy and immediately nodded with a smile. After that, he jumped off the throne and walked to the side of the huge rat nest. He carefully opened a cave door and walked in. Rat King happily followed behind. He seemed to be very excited. After they went in, the cave door immediately disappeared. It was so hidden that it was difficult to find anything. After entering the secret room, their eyes suddenly opened up. This was a very big hollow cave. In the center, there was a very rough altar. At a glance, it could be seen that it was built with a kind of strange stone. The altar was a hexagonal altar. There were a total of 3 levels. At the top, there was a yellow bead. The bead seemed to be constantly absorbing the power of the strange stones used to build the altar. The surface of the bead flickered and burst out in all directions, filling the entire space. When the yellow light landed on the walls of the cave, it seemed to fuse with them, causing the soil on the walls to become a brilliant yellow color. The Rat King came in and lay down under the altar. He breathed heavily and absorbed the strands of light into his body. The yellow light shone on his body and merged with his body bit by bit. He revealed a look of enjoyment. Rat King was also doing the same thing with ease. Voila! They didn't notice that when they were bathing in the light of the bead and enjoying it, a soft sound came from the walls of the cave. At this time, if they looked up, they would see that on the left, a sharp black claw had suddenly reached out from the wall. Then, he quickly drew a big circle in all directions like a big pancake. Then, he silently took it away. 2 pairs of eyes quietly looked down from the hole that had appeared out of nowhere. The opening of the cave was located at the top, and from a high vantage point, he could see everything in front of him. There is indeed something strange. There is actually an altar here. What is that bead on the altar? Why do I find it familiar? The ones who had silently created this large hole were none other than Chertion and Baisusu. Baisusu couldn't break through the wall without making a sound, but she couldn't stop Chertion. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. I support the author and the original reading. Chapter 210. His tiger claws were incomparably sharp, comparable to the sharpness of divine weapons. He had followed Baisusu all the way here with the intention of going to the Rat King's nest. However, when he arrived, he realized that the Rat King was no longer there. Thus, he guessed that they had gone to the secret chamber. That was why he continued to rush to the secret chamber. Although his tiger claws were sharp, when he broke through the stone wall, he could clearly feel that the soil under his claws was much harder than the stone. When he scratched it, it was as if he was scratching on steel. The obstruction was very serious. However, when he looked carefully, he couldn't tell what the stone was. It was a rare ore, but it didn't seem like it. The surface of the stone was like soil. However, it was terrifyingly hard. He couldn't understand it at all. This only confused him for a moment before his attention was attracted by the scene below. The strange altar and the earthen yellow orb on top of it. The orb emitted strands of spirit light that filled this space. When the light entered the cave wall, he roughly guessed why the cave wall was so sturdy. However, the moment he saw the pearl, he didn't know why, but a very familiar feeling appeared in his mind. This feeling came out of nowhere and he couldn't figure it out. Why do I have this feeling? Logically speaking, this should be the first time I see this pearl. Why do I have a sense of familiarity? Strange. Something's not right. As he muttered in his heart, the puzzled look in his eyes suddenly changed. He seemed to have thought of something. With a thought, a light flashed on his storage bag, and a strange black pearl appeared in his hand. Looking at the black pearl, there were streaks of black light flowing on its surface from time to time. Vaguely, a kind of mysterious energy was being emitted from the black pearl. There seemed to be a pool of black water rippling in the pearl. It was very strange. Tion still remembered this pearl. It was given to him by Medusa in exchange for his artifact forging manual. According to her, this black pearl had the ability to gather the essence of the sun and the moon. If one carried the black pearl with them, they would be able to absorb the essence of the sun and the moon much faster when cultivating. As for the rest, Medusa wasn't sure. Tion was even more clueless. One had to know that he didn't put this black bead in his heart at that time. He only treated it as an exchange item. Moreover, it was when he was about to leave the southern barbarian, so he casually put it in his storage bag. After that, a series of things happened. Unknowingly, he gradually put this strange black pearl to the back of his mind and never thought about it. If he hadn't seen the yellow pearl on the altar, he probably wouldn't have remembered it for a long time. Perhaps it would be buried deep in the storage bag, never to see the light of day. The sense of familiarity he felt just now was none other than the pearl on the altar. It was almost identical to the black pearl in his hand. Other than the difference in color, one was black while the other was yellow, there was no other difference. Although he had only taken a few glances at the black pearl back then, with his photographic memory, he had always remembered its appearance in his heart. That was why he recalled the memory in his mind at this time. My black bead is almost exactly the same as the yellow bead below. However, the black bead doesn't seem to be as mystical as the yellow bead. To be able to emit such an astonishing spiritual light, what is going on? Could it be that these two beads have some sort of connection? Could it be that this black pearl is also an amazing treasure? For a moment, Zhang Xian glanced back and forth between his hand and the altar. The difference was simply too great. The yellow pearl on the altar was emanating spiritual light, so it was obvious that it was no ordinary object. On the other hand, the black pearl in his hand was pitch black and unremarkable. Even when he infused his demonic essence into it, there was no reaction at all. It was really weird. After pondering for a moment, he didn't think of the key point, so he cautiously put away the black pearl. He took a step forward and let the earthy yellow spiritual light fall on him. He didn't stop it at all. As soon as the spiritual light fell, Tion's body suddenly shook. This is Earth attribute spiritual power. It's so pure. I have never felt such pure Earth attribute spiritual power. No wonder those rats have such amazing defensive power. Earth is virtuous and bears the weight of the heavens. Its defensive power is the strongest. At this moment, he completely understood why those rats had such amazing defensive power. It turned out that they had bathed in this unbelievably pure earth attribute's spiritual power. Ordinary rats didn't know how to absorb this earth attribute's spiritual power. When the spiritual light swept over their bodies, it would circulate on the surface of their bodies. 90% of it would be used as a temporary defense, and the remaining 10% would be naturally absorbed by their bodies. This was the real reason why their defense was so strong. Such a treasure has appeared in front of me. If I don't take it, I will be harmed in the future. It's a good opportunity to deal with the Rat King. With a shake of his body, his entire body suddenly transformed into a human form. He wore a large black robe on his body and quickly formed a seal with his hands. In an instant, one could see a violent wind forming in the cave below. In the fierce wind, light wind blades condensed in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, there were already hundreds of them. After it appeared, it did not stop and completely enveloped the head of the Rat King below. The wind blades danced in the air, carrying with them the sound of wind roaring. Even the wind blades carried a dense demonic aura. Wind blade technique. It was just an ordinary magic art, but when Sakura used it, its might increased greatly, making it especially different. Originally, when a small aura refining cultivator used it, it would be considered pretty good if they could release 1 or 2, or even 4 or 5, but now hundreds of them were formed. It looked like countless chaotic blades were fluttering in the air. It was very fierce and terrifying. Squeak! After all, the Rat King was a powerful demonic beast. It bathed in spiritual light every day. Compared to other demonic beasts, it was more fortunate and powerful. When it heard the sound of the wind blades tearing through the air, its 2 small eyes immediately opened. When it looked up and saw hundreds of wind blades descending from the sky, it became abnormally angry. It let out 2 strange cries. It didn't even try to dodge. Of course, this was also because the wind blades were too fast and didn't give it any time to dodge. Its body suddenly emitted bursts of earthy yellow light. Its hair stood up like sharp needles. It looked similar to a hedgehog. A heavy aura spread out. Ding ding ding, as expected, the wind blades landed on the Rat King's body. These wind blades were very sharp and even the air seemed to be sliced apart. However, before they could land on the Rat King's body, they were blocked by a thick layer of yellow light. This yellow light was abnormally strong. Hundreds of wind blades landed on the Rat King's body, but they were still unable to shake the light barrier. The Rat King, on the other hand, squeaked a few times. The yellow light on its body suddenly grew longer, and a powerful force burst out from its body, shattering the wind blades. Bang! The Rat King heavily dropped its claws on the ground. The ground under its feet trembled slightly. The aura on its body became fierce and ferocious. Its 2 eyes scanned the surroundings. When the Rat King saw this sudden change, he first shrank his head and then scanned the surroundings. Who is it? Who dares to behave atrociously in this king's territory and even dare to attack this king? I will definitely tear you into pieces, the Rat King roared. Its gaze fell on Deshertion. The light in its eyes condensed. It bared its teeth and looked like it was ready to pounce at any time. King, this general will help you teach this 2-legged monster a lesson. The Rat King saw that the human flying in the air looked exactly like a human. Thinking of the delicious taste of human flesh, he didn't even think. He jumped forward, stretched out his rat claws, and pounced at Deshertion. This pounce was extremely fierce. After it rushed out, the air in front of it tore apart. Sakura only looked at Ratda, who didn't know the difference between life and death, with a cold face. Bang! A white shadow shot out from the hole that had been dug out in midair. A tail swept heavily onto Rat Big's body. A terrifying force slammed into Rat Big's body. Rat Big's body, which had originally been pouncing forward, was sent flying on the spot. He smashed into the ground, creating a large crater. As the Rat King fell to the ground, a delicate voice sounded in the air. A mere stinky rat dares to fight with the king. You are simply courting death. A figure appeared. It was a huge white python. It landed on the ground and scolded with disdain. The white python of the myriad demon valley. Who are you? When the Rat King saw the white shadow, its eyes suddenly shrank. It became abnormally dignified and inexplicably showed a trace of fear. It looked at Tion as if it had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. Big rat, don't you even recognize this king? Do you still remember that I once said that I will kill you no matter where you go? If you go to the sky, I will chase you to the sky. Since you are hiding underground and not coming out, this king can only find the ground and come down. Tian's expression was incomparably indifferent. However, it could still feel the cold, killing intent from his tone. You are the Black Tiger King Tian. How did you find this place? The Rat King's expression changed greatly. The fear in its heart could no longer be suppressed. It screamed, even if this king provoked you in the past, there was no need to kill me. This king has not left the ground. Why won't you let me go? Don't think that this king is afraid of you. If you push me too far, this king will fight it out with you. Although it spoke fiercely, it was actually showing weakness. It had a kind of aura of strength. In fact, the Rat King was terrifyingly smart. When it saw Tian and confirmed his identity, it had already guessed that he would definitely not let it go. It thought of the repeated battles in the past. Tian's strength was getting stronger each time. The fear in its heart couldn't help but spread. When it saw Tian appear in human form, it thought of a terrifying legend in its mind. A demon that could transform into human form was a real demon. With that kind of strength, it could kill demon beasts at will. When it thought of this, it understood that it was no match for Tian. After roaring, its body swept out like lightning. In the blink of an eye, it pounced on the altar and swallowed the mysterious bead on the altar. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 211. Tian, since you won't let me go, I'll fight it out with you today. Let's see if you die or I die. The Rat King's attack was too fast and too sudden. Moreover, it was not far from the altar. Its speed was so fast that no one could stop it. The Rat King swallowed the earth-yellow spiritual bead on the altar and stood on the altar. It bared its teeth and laughed evilly. Madness appeared in its eyes. Looking at Tian, his eyes were filled with a sinister and terrifying expression. The ominous glint in his eyes was clear as his bloodthirsty aura continued to rise. This secret chamber had been illuminated by the spiritual light for many years. It had become extremely hard. On the outside, it was a solid defensive space. Very few people could break through it. On the other hand, it was not easy to open a path to the outside. After Tian came out, he was standing right in front of the exit. This meant that the Rat King had no intention of escaping and was in a desperate situation. As the saying goes, even a desperate dog will jump over a wall. When a rabbit is driven to desperation, it will rise up and hurt others. Moreover, the Rat King was a demonic beast that was not inferior to any human's intelligence. When it saw that there was no way to escape, its mind was naturally filled with an aura of desperation. If it was not allowed to live, it would not let the other party have a good time. Even if it was going to die, it would bite the other party a few times before it died. This kind of thinking was the most common thing in a situation where there was no hope. You should have done this long ago. The debt between us should be settled today. Indifferent, Sakura looked at the ferocious appearance of Rat King. With a thought in his mind, a series of chong-chong-chong sounds could be heard. One after another, pitch-black crescent moon-shaped blades materialized from nothingness. There were more than 20 of them, flying up and down around him at high speed. However, these blades only danced for a while. Under his control, they quickly rushed towards the same place. They fused together. For a moment, the saber chi crisscrossed. A huge crescent blade was condensed during the fusion. It was about 30 to 40 feet in size. On the blade, black light flashed, bursting with sharp saber chi. The blade vibrated, and countless saber chi tore the surrounding air apart. Kill! Di Shirtian pointed with his finger. In a flash, the huge demonic mist blade seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth apart. It heavily slashed down on Rat King on the altar. A peerless saber light swept through the world. The sharp saber chi instantly locked onto Rat King's body and chopped down. All the creatures under the saber felt as if the heavens were descending, and they couldn't dodge. It was hard for him to even think about dodging. Creak, creak. The Rat King let out a few strange cries as its body radiated an unprecedented yellow light. This light contained a demonic aura, as well as an extremely dense and astonishing power of earth. This earthy yellow light continued to circulate within the Rat King's body and fur. It was an extremely strange sight. Furthermore, the Rat King's body suddenly changed. It began to expand violently. In the blink of an eye, the Rat King's body expanded to an astonishing size. 3 feet, 2 feet, all the way until it was 5 feet tall. Its entire body was glowing with earthy yellow light, as if it was made of steel. Clang! The demonic mist blade split the heavens and earth apart. It flashed with a sharp saber light as it slashed down on Rat King's body. This saber light was as solid as any magic weapon. It landed squarely on Rat King's head. However, a terrifying thing happened. When the saber light landed on Rat King's head, it was as if the saber light had slashed down on Rat King's head. It didn't even cut through Rat King's fur. Instead, countless sparks burst out. At this moment, it was as if Rat King had an indestructible body. Powerful, what a powerful force! The divine orb, it really is the divine orb. Today, I've swallowed the divine orb. I'm invincible. I'm not afraid of you. Rat King's face was ferocious as it roared arrogantly. The moment it swallowed the divine orb, waves of tyrannical power of earth gushed out from the divine orb. It quickly surged through its entire body. For a moment, it felt as if it had been injected with a stimulant. It felt as if its body was filled with inexhaustible power, and its strength was continuously rising. In the blink of an eye, it broke through its original realm and reached an inconceivable level. Short-sighted, 2 rays of earthy yellow light suddenly shot out from Rat King's eyes. The light was only an inch long, but it contained a supreme divine ability. It slammed into the huge demonic mist blade. The demonic mist blade couldn't resist at all. It was pierced through and shattered into pieces. That wasn't all. The 1-inch light didn't stop at all. It followed the demonic mist blade's trajectory and shot out like 2 divine arrows, piercing through the sky and piercing towards Di Shirtian. The power of this short-sighted ability was completely different from before. Wherever it passed, there would be waves of distorted ripples in the air. The light was able to calm people's minds. It locked onto Di Shirtian in one fell swoop. This was no longer a divine ability that could be used by a demonic beast. After swallowing the divine orb, the Rat King's strength suddenly increased by several times, or even dozens of times. Its aura continued to rise violently. The 2 rays of light pierced towards Di Shirtian, and a strong sense of danger emerged in his heart. All the hair on his body stood on end. Ding dong! A demonic jade light shot out from his body. When the light settled, a 9-string jade zither made of jade appeared in front of him and floated in midair. Di Shirtian's expression turned serious. He placed both hands on the zither strings. His fingers immediately drew out afterimages as he rapidly plucked the strings. A crisp and domineering sound of the zither immediately rang out. The sound of the zither stirred up the surrounding heaven and earth, forming waves of sound waves. Like a tidal wave, they continuously swept out in all directions. What was even more amazing was that the sound waves didn't spread out. It seemed to be restrained by some kind of power and only reverberated within a radius of 10 meters around him. It turned this area into a unique sound domain. The sound waves were unusually domineering. Moreover, de Chertien's 10 fingers didn't stop. The sound waves continued to spread out, and the air within the sound domain was strangely distorted. Vaguely, there seemed to be strange notes condensing within the sound waves. It was very magical. Bang! The light formed by the Rat King's short-sighted eyes had already arrived outside the sound domain. It didn't stop at all and immediately shot into the sound domain. A sharp and terrifying power burst out from the light. The power contained within had reached an unimaginable level, and there was an unparalleled power hidden within. It crashed into the sound domain, and the entire sound domain was shaken. It vibrated violently, and there was no way to block it out. The light broke through and entered the sound domain. However, the sound domain itself was a kind of strong protection similar to a domain formed by countless sound waves. The space here was constantly distorted and vibrating. The frequency of the vibrations was so high that it was vibrating countless times every second. The distortions possessed boundless power. Even if a Dharma artifact entered the sound domain, the power contained within the distortion would shatter the Dharma artifact into powder, or even completely shatter it into nothingness. However, at this moment it was the exact opposite. The space that was constantly twisting in the sound domain did not seem to have much of an effect on the light. Just as it approached the light, it was destroyed with a bang, forcibly breaking a path out of the sound domain. Although there was some effect, it only caused the radiance on the essence light to become slightly dimmer. However, they were still shooting towards de Chertien in the end. Humph! De Chertien's eyes narrowed. The sound of the zither in his hand changed, and the monster chi in his body quickly poured into his 10 fingers. He plucked the zither strings, and in an instant, thin as cicada wings and shaped like crescent moons continuously shot out from the zither strings, slashing at Jin Guang. Bang, bang, bang! A series of terrifying explosions resounded continuously. The sound domain was completely shattered by the waves of powerful energy, completely obliterating it. When everything calmed down, Bai Susu couldn't help but exclaim, "Your Majesty, your shoulder," only to see that on de Chertien's left shoulder and ribs, 2 terrifying holes were revealed sinisterly. Streams of blood continuously flowed out, soaking his clothes in large patches. "How dare you, your Majesty? I'll kill you!" Bai Susu's eyes were bloodshot. She glared at the Rat King fiercely and moved to pounce on him. However, de Chertien stopped her. "Susu, don't move!" His words stopped her in her tracks. As he shouted, de Chertien's gaze fell on the Rat King. It was a strange sight. "No, how can this be? I'm the most powerful. Even de Chertien can't block my mystique, power. I don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. It's so uncomfortable. Divine Pearl, please stop. I can't take it anymore." A series of mournful cries mysteriously rang out from the altar. Originally, the Rat King, who had relied on his short-sightedness to severely injure Sakura in one fell swoop, should have been quite happy as an expert. However, at this moment, it was the complete opposite as it let out a mournful cry. Its tone was filled with fear. There was a hint of pain in his eyes. His huge body suddenly became like a balloon that was filled with air. He kept bumping into each other. For a moment, his body grew bigger. For a moment, his limbs expanded. For a moment, his head became distorted. His body seemed to be filled with gas. He couldn't tame it. He wanted to use his body as a vessel to break free. The scene was extremely horrifying. "No, Divine Pearl, please stop. I don't want my power anymore. Spit it out. Spit it out." The Rat King tried his best to spit out the pearl he had just swallowed. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't spit it out. He could only watch in horror as his body continued to swell. Layers of blood seeped out from his pores. In the blink of an eye, His entire body turned blood-red. "Your Majesty, why is he like this?" Bai Susu looked at the changes in front of her in shock. "He's playing with fire," Di Shirtian said coldly. P.S. The following words will not count. Think about it, I've been writing for a few years now, and I've published a book almost every year. Other than the Chinese New Year, when I take a month's leave, I've never stopped updating any of my books. At night, when other people are sleeping, I have to write until late at night. Every day when I'm sick, I don't stop updating. The number of times I take leave can be counted on one hand. Why is it like this? Of course, money is part of it, but as an author, responsibility is also part of it. After all, once a book is published, it's already a product that's being sold on the spot. Everyone is spending money to read the book, so there's no reason for me to stop updating. I have to be responsible for the readers. To be honest, it's really tiring. I'm just rambling on casually. I suddenly felt a little emotional. Speaking from the bottom of my heart, I don't mean anything else. There's still a second update. Please don't worry. Chapter 212. Di Shirtian could clearly feel that the Rat King's body was constantly emitting a powerful energy. This energy was almost the same as the energy he felt from the God's Pearl on the altar. Moreover, it was not under the Rat King's control at all. It was completely out of his control. Now, this energy was rampaging through his body. It was wantonly destroying. Although he didn't know what kind of treasure the bead was, he could guess that it was definitely not an ordinary object. The power contained in the bead could be said to be endless. Once such an inconceivable amount of power was drawn out, Rat King, who was only a demonic beast without any demonic cultivation method, would not be able to withstand it even if his body was bathed in divine light day and night. It would become extremely tough and powerful. How could it withstand the endless energy in the pearl? It was like a greedy child who wanted to pick up a sword that only adults could pick up. Not only could it not wield it, but it could also easily hurt itself. At the beginning, the energy gushing out of the God's Pearl was still within the Rat King's tolerance. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, the Rat King's strength increased by several times, or even dozens of times. However, if it continued and could not be controlled, the energy gushing out of the pearl would become more and more intense. Once it exceeded the tolerance of the Rat King's body, it would become harmful. It would immediately turn from beneficial to harmful. Once the energy that did not belong to him escaped his control and rampaged through his body, it was like gunpowder that could explode at any time. Playing with fire, this was playing with fire. After swallowing the God's Pearl, one would have to bear the brunt of the powerful energy. If one could not bear it, one would explode like a balloon. What exactly is that pearl? It is so mysterious. Although Di Shirtian's body was pierced through, with the help of his powerful demonic body, the wound began to heal. The bleeding had stopped, and the injury wasn't fatal. He carefully looked at the ferocious Rat King and listened to the miserable screams. His eyes lit up and he shouted, "Su, quickly come back to the cave." Hearing those words, Bai Susu instinctively leaped into the passageway that they came in from. Meanwhile, Di Shirtian's gaze fell on Rat Boss, who was lying on the ground. He grabbed him by the tail and lifted him up. A gentle breeze blew past him, and in the blink of an eye, he was back in the passageway. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he used the rock that he had cut to block the entrance of the passageway. Bang! After doing all this, there was a miserable scream and a terrifying explosion in the secret chamber. Then, the entire underground shook as a destructive force swept through the surroundings. The rumbling continued without end, and the countless underground tunnels within a radius of 100 li were shaken until they collapsed. Who knew how many rats were buried underground? The scene was extremely terrifying. Even the passageway that Di Shirtian and the others were in collapsed. However, with Bai Susu and Di Shirtian's strength, even if the passageway collapsed, it wouldn't cause too much damage. The violent tremors lasted for a while. Then, it gradually stopped. With a loud crash, Tirtian broke free from the collapsed passageway. He rushed into the secret chamber. You want to reap without sowing and seize power that doesn't belong to you? You're playing with fire and getting burned. You don't know your limits as a demon. However, you're delusional if you want to drag me down with you when you're on the verge of death. Scanning the surroundings, the secret chamber had become abnormally sturdy under the illumination of the god orb for many years. It did not collapse from the explosion. However, the altar that originally stood in the middle of the chamber had been completely blown to smithereens by the Rat King's self-destruction. Furthermore, the Rat King's body had also exploded into millions of pieces and scattered all over the place. It couldn't be any more dead. However, on the spot where the altar used to be, a yellow pearl had fallen to the ground. Streaks of yellow light flashed continuously on the pearl, as if there was a pool of yellow spiritual water rippling in the pearl. It looked exceptionally mysterious. However, the divine light that was constantly emitting from the pearl seemed to have been completely retracted. There was an additional mysterious hue on the outside. What kind of treasure is this pearl? It was radiating divine light just a moment ago, but now it's extremely retracted, just like my black pearl. Tirtian walked forward and picked up the yellow pearl with his left hand, while the black pearl appeared in his right hand. The two pearls were almost the same size and appearance, except for the color. There was almost no difference in other aspects. What was it? This question unconsciously emerged from the bottom of his heart, making it difficult for him to answer. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he knew too little about this continent and this world. He knew very little about all kinds of things and all kinds of secrets. He clearly knew that the two pearls in his hands were very likely some kind of miraculous treasure. There was a mountain of treasures in front of him, but he couldn't recognize it. This was a kind of torture. If the know-it-all was here, maybe he would know what kind of treasure these pearls are. He suddenly thought of the seemingly cynical know-it-all he had met in the Guqin Valley. Thinking of the know-it-all, he felt that this person was definitely not as simple as he looked. He was most likely a strange person who played the game. He remembered that the peach of immortality and the tree of world that he had mentioned seemed to be some kind of incredible existence. He had many questions to ask, but when he thought of the price that the know-it-all had offered, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. He couldn't think of any of those things. The only thing that was slightly more reliable was the 10,000-year monkey wine. Maybe he could use the wine god's gourd to get it in the future, but he didn't dare to think about other things. It was too far away. Forget it, these two pearls must be extraordinary treasures. Although I don't know what they are used for now, I'll have time to ask about it in the future. Seeing the change in the yellow pearl, the black pearl that he hadn't paid much attention to also became particularly different. He guessed that the black pearl might be the same as the yellow pearl. For some reason, it had become introverted. It didn't reveal its mystery. There must be a connection between the two. Hey, I remember! Tirtian's mind suddenly flashed and his eyes lit up. He first took out the 7 sins demonic zither, then patted the storage bag and took out a yellow ancient scroll. The ancient scroll emitted bursts of ancient aura. It could be seen that it had existed for a very long time. It was none other than the ancient scroll that flew out of the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box when he first broke the jigsaw puzzle lock. He took the ancient scroll in his hand and quickly opened it. The picture on the ancient scroll was reflected in his eyes. The picture in the picture was of a 9-stringed Guqin. Seeing this picture, Tirtian's eyes instantly fell on the strange groove beside each string of the Guqin. The shape of the groove was also circular. It seemed that it was specially used to embed some kind of bead. Could this groove really be used to embed some kind of bead? However, what kind of precious bead is this? Strange, why didn't the ancient scroll say anything about it? Sakra secretly guessed in his heart. That year, when he saw the ancient scroll, He also paid the most attention to this picture of the ancient zither. It was entirely the 9 strings on the ancient zither. After all, the 9-stringed guqin was one of the rarest things in the world. Therefore, at first glance, it attracted his attention. Back then, he did have doubts about the groove beside the strings. However, at that time, he just thought that it might be a kind of strange carving. After a while, he didn't think about it anymore. Now it seemed that it might not be as simple as a carving. Looking at the 7 sins demonic zither again, there was a groove beside each of the 9 strings on the guqin. Back then, when he was refining the guqin, he didn't have any other thoughts about leaving the groove empty. He just followed the pattern on the ancient scroll and refined it exactly the same. Now it seemed that if he didn't leave it at that time, it might have been a huge loss. What does this groove mean? All kinds of thoughts flashed through D. Shirtian's mind. He wanted to put the bead in his hand into the groove and try. However, the 7 sins demonic zither was his natal demon artifact. If there was an accident, it would be completely terrible. Not only would the guqin be damaged, but he would also be seriously injured. He didn't act rashly. After thinking carefully, he didn't think about it anymore. He would think about it later. He put the ancient scroll away and put it back. He carefully put the 2 beads in a jade box and put them away. With a thought, he put the 7 sins back into his body. King, the Rat King is already dead. This stinky rat, should we kill it too? Bai Susu also saw that Di Shirtian got the yellow bead that was originally on the altar and was secretly happy. She had seen the power of the bead with her own eyes. It was definitely an incredible treasure. Since it was obtained by the king, she didn't feel jealous or greedy. She knew that no matter what, as long as there was a share of the king, he would definitely not mistreat them as subordinates. The monkey wine was so precious, he was not stingy and gave them to use for cultivation. He also allowed them to choose all kinds of artifacts. For the king to be able to do this, it could be said that he had never underestimated them. This was enough. Looking at the motionless rat boss on the ground, Bai Susu said in disgust, "Wait, Black Tiger King, White Python Queen, please don't kill me. I surrender, I don't want to die." Rat Boss, who was lying on the ground like a corpse, immediately rolled on the ground and quickly stood up when he heard Bai Susu say that she wanted to kill him. He put his 2 paws together and kowtowed to Di Shirtian. There were banging sounds on the ground. He said the words of surrender without a trace of backbone. He looked like he was afraid of death. "Don't worry, keep this little rat. He is still useful to our myriad demon valley. Don't be in a hurry to kill him." Di Shirtian glanced at Rat Boss and said indifferently. There was a meaningful look in his eyes. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 213. Rat Da's 2 eyes spun rapidly in his pupils. He was very clever. Seeing that Sakura didn't seem to have the intention to kill him, he quickly climbed up the rope and said, "Black Tiger King, this little one is really willing to pledge allegiance to you. King, please give this little one a chance. No matter what the matter is, this little one will definitely handle it properly." While kowtowing, he expressed his loyalty. How much of this loyalty was real? In fact, it was easy to guess with a little thought. How could Sakura believe it so easily? He could almost see at a glance that Rat Boss was a kind of rat that was born to be timid. He was a rebellious seed that swayed with the wind. Loyalty was not an extravagant hope. Who knows, if he really met someone stronger than him in the future, he would easily betray him again. He did not dare to say anything about the future, but right now there was no place for him to trust. However, he did not have the intention to immediately accept his loyalty. This was impossible, and he did not expect it. "Today I will not only give you a chance, but also give you a great benefit. Let's see if you can grasp it," Di Shirtian said meaningfully. A great benefit? Rat's big eyes lit up. He muttered to himself and hurriedly asked, I wonder what my king is referring to. As he spoke, he looked like he wanted to look but didn't dare to look at Sakura. He was very nervous. As long as you swear that from today on, you will be loyal to me and will never betray me, then I will let you be the king of countless rats underground. The original Rat King has already destroyed himself. As long as you agree, you will be the new Rat King from now on. However, I will say this first. As long as you agree, from now on, the rat race will be a member of my myriad demon valley. If there is even the slightest bit of betrayal, don't blame me for being ruthless. The fate of the Rat King today will be your example in the future. Sakura's voice was low as he looked at Rat Big. His body naturally emitted a kind of majestic aura that was exerted on Rat Big. Every time he spat out a word, the majestic aura on his body would become stronger by a bit. My king, you want to? Bai Susu's eyes flashed with a strange light when she heard this. She muttered in her heart, vaguely guessing the king's thoughts. However, the southern barbarian lands was very big, and the spiritual chi was also very abundant. It was a rare place for cultivation. In the mountains, there were also most of the birds and beasts that had intelligence and spirituality. However, although the number of these spiritual beasts was not small, compared to the entire southern barbarian lands, there was one here and one there, and they were very scattered. Thus, it appeared to be very sparse. During this period of time, Di Shurtian had been thinking about how to develop the myriad demon valley. Although he was strong, he could not become a peerless master, a legendary demon saint, or a demon god. If he relied on himself, he would be weak. After all, there was always something that could not be defeated. Developing his own forces and becoming strong together was the way to go. Perhaps in the future, if the Myriad Demon Valley really developed, it would become a wind vane for the Demon Clan, encouraging the rise of the Demon Clan. However, if he really wanted to develop a force from nothing, it was not as simple as talking about it. All kinds of problems and aspects needed to be considered one by one. It was like building a house. You couldn't say that you wanted 2 floors. If you didn't build the first floor, you would build the second floor directly. Could a building without the first floor last? It was just a castle in the air. It was always like a bubble. Therefore, he had never thought that he could create something out of nothing and build a tall building from the ground. He taught Chi Hua, Baiwei, and the others the secret method of demon cultivation. He was building the foundation to brew the monkey wine, and he was not stingy to give it to the creatures in the valley to drink, increasing their chances of developing intelligence by several times. This was also a means. So far, it had been effective. There were already 4,000 or 5,000 spiritual beasts in the valley. As time went by, there would be more. However, this was not enough. The speed of development still did not satisfy him. On the contrary, there was a sense of urgency. After being in the secular world for a while, although he did not get too involved in the cultivation world, he could still feel the foundation of the cultivation world. The Qin family's groom search could easily attract so many young talents, and there was no lack of core formation cultivators. Perhaps these were only some of the rogue cultivators and sects near the Qin family. But from this it could be seen that there were countless powerhouses in the cultivation world. What was revealed in the major sects might only be on the surface. The hidden strength was probably not something that ordinary people could understand. Compared to the Demon Clan, the gap was like heaven and earth. The Thousand Beasts sect was a large sect. Could it be that they were as simple as they appeared to be? It was impossible for an individual to reach the sky in a single step and become a peerless powerhouse, a demon saint or a demon deity. Then, they had to work hard to develop their forces and use the deterrence of their forces to achieve their goals. It was precisely because of this that he was also thinking of a plan. He was thinking of a way to set up a charter to completely unite the Demon Clan in the Myriad Demon Valley and twist them into a rope, effectively increasing the strength of all the demons. The number of rats underground was huge and countless. The underground tunnels were almost all over the underground of the southern barbarian lands. The tunnels dug out were like an underground kingdom. If he could subdue this group of rats, he could grasp the situation of the entire southern barbarian lands with the rats' omnipresence. Rats had no other abilities, but they were first class in gathering intelligence. Moreover, this group of rats was large in number and could also allow them to find all kinds of spiritual medicines and items in various places. It was very convenient. Giving them up was a big loss, but subduing them was a big help. In this case, it was understandable why de Chertion would say such words. Rat Big's eyes rolled a few times, and he immediately vowed, "My king, this subordinate is willing to pledge allegiance to you and the myriad demon valley. In the future, as long as you say the word, I will go east and south. I will do my best to help you, my king." At this moment, how could he have the slightest thought of opposition? As long as he opposed, the result could be imagined. Whoosh! However, right at the moment when Rat Big had a loyal appearance and was loudly speaking, a black light flashed past and directly entered Rat Big's mouth. Caught off guard, Rat Big swallowed it without the slightest bit of resistance. "My king, you are." Rat Big looked at de Chertion in fear. That thing melted in his mouth, and did not give him a chance to spit it out. Even if he could spit it out, he did not dare to. "Don't worry, what I gave you is my unique poison, 7 deadly poison. After eating it, within a year, if you don't have my antidote, even if you become a demon beast, pass the heavenly tribulation, and transform into a demon, you can't get rid of it. When the time is up, your intestines will immediately rot and you will die. As long as you are loyal to me, I will give you the antidote on time every year. If you are disloyal, the day of the poison is the day you die. Don't try to escape from the southern barbarian lands. Otherwise, you will regret it." Sakra glanced at him indifferently and said without a care in the world, "If there is a day when I can prove your loyalty, I will naturally give you the antidote. Yes, my king. This subordinate will not dare to be disloyal." Rat Big hung his head dejectedly, but he still roused his spirits and expressed his loyalty without hesitation. "Good. As for how to subdue the underground rats, I believe that with your strength, after the Rat King's death, there shouldn't be a problem. As long as you subdue the rats, you will be the new Rat King. When the time comes, you can go to the Myriad Demon Valley." After Sakra finished speaking, he no longer cared about anything else. He glanced at Shuda indifferently and nodded towards Baisusu. "Susu, let's go back." With the Rat King dead, the original grievances had all disappeared. Once the underground rats were united, the Myriad Demon Valley would become even stronger. Furthermore, he obtained a mysterious yellow bead, which was a rare treasure. This underground trip could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The harvest was quite rich. The tunnel collapsed, but it was not a problem for de Chertion. He forcibly made a passage from the underground. He rushed out and came to the surface. He did not stay long and returned to the Myriad Demon Valley. Zhu Niao was still waiting in the valley. The things that should be done were almost done. De Chertion also wanted to see the mysterious woman in the southern barbarian. He wanted to see what kind of person she was. Putting these aside, in the 100 Flowers Valley, flowers bloomed all year round. The climate in the valley was like spring all year round. The fragrance of hundreds of flowers was pleasant, and in the surroundings, there were tens of thousands of butterflies flying about. The colorful butterflies fluttered in the air, and it was a rare scene. Of course, in the valley, not only were there flowers blooming, there were also all kinds of ancient trees. However, there were very few trees, and there were very few of them. However, the sparse ancient trees in the valley were abnormally thick and tall. For example, the house built by Sister Zhu Niao was built by relying on this ancient tree. Not far from the house, there was an equally tall ancient tree. The trunk of the ancient tree was so thick that several adults might not be able to hug it. It was so thick that it was like a pillar supporting the sky. The branches were vigorous and powerful. The branches and leaves were dense, fluttering in the wind and covering a large area. It looked like a thriving momentum. In the tree there was a strong aura of life. No one knew that this ancient tree looked no different from other ancient trees, but in the trunk of the ancient tree, there was a strange man standing in the tree. No, it could be said that he was integrated into the ancient tree. His eyes were slightly closed, and all the flesh and blood on his body were dry. Even his face was no exception. What could be seen was a horrible appearance of skin wrapped around bones, like the withered dead wood. His aura was not revealed at all. He was dead silent, like a tree. The rise and fall of his heart would only beat once in a long time. The sound was inaudible. His body was integrated into the ancient tree. Even if someone was outside and used their divine consciousness to scan, they would not find anything unusual. From the looks of it, this person should have cultivated some kind of mysterious cultivation method. What kind of effect would that produce? If one were to look closely, one would notice that the person integrated into the ancient tree seemed to be absorbing the enormous aura of life contained in the ancient tree itself. After absorbing it into his body, the ancient tree appeared to be full of vitality, but in reality, the inside of the tree was already dried up. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 214. This person was seizing the essence of the plants for his own use. It was a blatant act of theft. He stole the essence that did not belong to him and did not give anything in return. Once the essence of the ancient tree was completely stolen, it was equivalent to the end of its life. Now, the ancient tree was full of vitality, but it was only a fleeting moment. Swoosh! The strange person who looked like a dead tree suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were also extremely strange. There seemed to be a white gas in his left eye, and a black gas flashed in his right eye. The white gas seemed to be thriving and full of vitality. His right eye, on the other hand, was grayish-white and deathly still, as if it contained an endless amount of death. These two completely different feelings appeared in his eyes at the same time. It could be said to be the strangest thing. If it was seen by others, they would probably shudder on the spot and have their hairs stand on end. It also seemed to represent the charm of withering and thriving in the plants, and the alternating charm of time. Damned know-it-all, you old fart. I've only killed a few of your descendants. You have so many descendants, but you just won't let me go and chased me for 1,000 years. If it wasn't for the fact that I've cultivated one of the most marvelous incantations in the world, the 9 changes of life and death, I would have been able to escape by faking my death. Humph, you old fart, you really got away with it. Humph, if it wasn't for the fact that I've only cultivated the 9 changes of life and death to the 6th change, you wouldn't have had the chance to be so fierce. When I recover, I'll settle the score with you sooner or later. The different divine lights in his eyes quickly disappeared, but he kept muttering and cursing someone. Judging from his tone, it could be said that he was furious. This old fart is really ruthless. To think that I, perfected Lord Ku Rong, have dominated the world, and I'm considered ruthless when it comes to killing people. I've killed countless living beings, but I'm still a little inferior to you. No wonder I could survive since ancient times. My cultivation base is only left with this insignificant bit. True Lord Ku Rong looked like he was gnashing his teeth, but it made his appearance that resembled a dead tree look even more terrifying and appalling. If they were in the secular world, his appearance alone was enough to scare countless people to death. However, the heavens have not forsaken me, allowing me to encounter this strange flower here. As long as I find an opportunity and devour her at the moment when she fuses with her body during the tribulation, not only will there be hope for me to recover my cultivation, I might even be able to break through my original shackles and reach an unprecedented level. Soon, so many years had passed, and the tribulation would be in the next 1 or 2 years. Faster, faster. I can't wait any longer. If it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't find your true body, I wouldn't have been trapped here for hundreds of years. Perfected Lord Ku Rong licked his lips and looked unusually ferocious. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the tree and look directly into the house. With just a glance, his eyes slowly began to close again. In the blink of an eye, his aura was restrained again, as if there was no trace of life. However, his body was still slowly and persistently absorbing the life essence of the ancient tree. No one would have been able to discover that there was actually such a strange person in such an ancient tree. It made one's hair stand on end, and the chill was bone-piercing. Zhu'er, where is the 100 Flowers Valley? Is it in the center of the southern wilderness? In the dense forest of the southern barbarian region, there were tall, ancient trees and mountain ranges. A small vermilion bird flapped its wings and flew around a black-robed man. The man looked at the vermilion bird and faintly smiled before asking, "What is it?" It was Di Shirtian, who had returned to the Myriad Demon Valley and rested for a day before following the vermilion bird to the 100 Flowers Valley. Glancing around and following the vermilion bird, he found that the route seemed to lead to the center of the southern wilderness. Di Shirtian knew that there was a mysterious woman in the southern wilderness and that the woman lived in a place called the 100 Flowers Valley. However, he did not know the specific location. After all, the southern wilderness was too big. There were not only the demon clan but also some birds and beasts. There were also many dangers, such as some ancient strange beasts that could not develop intelligence and some unique dangerous places, like the ancient tombs in the Myriad Demon Valley. Wait, if he rushed in rashly, he would not even know how he died. For a long time, Di Shirtian had not really traveled in the southern wilderness, so it was naturally difficult for him to know the specific location of the 100 Flowers Valley. Yes, that's right. Zhu'er heard from elder sister that the 100 Flower Valley is located in the center of the southern wilderness. It's the place where the 100 veins converge. It's a rare treasure land. The spiritual energy inside is many times denser than in other places. It has also formed a spiritual spring, which is the best place in the southern wilderness. Brother D, you will understand when you get there. It is not inferior to your Myriad Demon Valley at all. It's just a little small. The vermilion bird chattered incessantly. She had never come into contact with an outsider, and she herself was not scheming. When she spoke, it was as if she was spilling beans. She blurted out everything she knew, and there was even a faint, flaunting expression on her face. Really? Then I'd like to take a good look. Di Shirtian smiled indifferently, turned his eyes and said, "The 100 Flowers Valley. Could it be that hundreds of flowers bloom in the valley all year round?" There are more than 100 kinds of flowers in the valley. I heard from my sister that the 100 Flowers Valley is actually a flower mound with many kinds of flowers. These flowers bloom at the right time. There are different kinds of flowers blooming all year round. My sister likes peonies the most, and there are many peonies in the valley. Also, there are many butterflies flying around the valley every day. They are very beautiful. Sister Dai and I are very familiar with each other. When we get there, I will introduce you to her. Flower mound? What does a flower mound mean? Di Shirtian turned his attention to the two most sensitive words, flower mound. Vaguely, he seemed to have grasped something. He immediately blurted out the question. Flower mound. Zhu'er doesn't quite understand. Zhu Niao shook her head and landed on Di Shirtian's shoulder. She tilted her head and thought carefully. Then, she said, I seem to remember that my sister once told me about it. The flower mound used to be the grave of thousands of rare flowers in the purple gold continent after they were annihilated. When they were annihilated, they seemed to have left behind some flowers. Zhu is not too sure about the rest. Hee, Brother D, let's hurry up. My sister must be waiting anxiously in the valley. When Di Tian heard this, he naturally quickened his pace. There was an inexplicable breeze blowing around him. His steps were light and his speed increased. Not long after, he thought about it and rode the demon wind forward again. His expression did not change, but thousands of ideas emerged in his mind, flashing constantly. He thought about the information that Zhu had accidentally revealed. He began to think. Although there was not much information, he could still figure out some things. First, it was very clear that the Hundred Flowers Valley was definitely a special place in the southern barbarian land. Its location and uniqueness made it special. He had heard of the flower mound before. It meant a tomb for all sorts of treasured swords. The mound was a graveyard. The origin of the flower mound was most likely an inestimable secret. Why were there so many rare flowers buried in the Hundred Flower Valley? Or rather, what exactly happened there back then? Second, he had a vague guess about the identity of the sister that Zhu mentioned. Could it be that her sister was some kind of rare flower in the Hundred Flower Valley that gave birth to spiritual intelligence and transformed into a plant spirit of the demon clan? This guess was not baseless. The Hundred Flower Valley had the most flowers in the valley, and the thing that it did not lack the least was flowers. According to the location of the valley, it was most likely that the flowers had given birth to spiritual intelligence and condensed into a pill and transformed into a human form. Among the demon clan, birds and beasts were demons as long as they gave birth to spiritual intelligence. It was the same for flowers, plants, and trees. As long as they were living beings, they would become demons as long as they gave birth to spiritual intelligence. Among the demons, flowers, plants, and trees were the most special. Once they gave birth to spiritual intelligence, they would often have even more magical abilities. For example, plants of the same species could communicate with each other. Wait, there were many other mystical aspects. The opportunity for plants to transform into demons was very rare. However, once they did, they would be experts among the demon clan. At the same time, their rarity also represented their preciousness. Along the way, he pondered while chatting with the vermilion bird. Riding the demon wind, he was not slow. With the vermilion bird's guidance, he bypassed many dangerous areas along the way and took the fastest route. It did not take long. They finally arrived at their destination. Brother D, look, we're here. The Hundred Flower Valley is in front. Sister, I'm back. The vermilion bird's eyes lit up when she saw the front. She cried out clearly, flapped her wings, and pounced in happily. This is the Hundred Flower Valley. It's indeed beautiful. Di Tian stopped in front of the valley and swept his gaze forward. Around the valley, peach blossoms bloomed and apricot trees fell in all directions. Around the valley, hills rose and surrounded it. Looking at the trees on the hills, the distribution seemed to be very messy. However, there seemed to be a pattern that was difficult to describe. It could connect with the surrounding heaven and earth. In addition, there were all kinds of falling petals. It seemed to have a strange artistic conception. This was still outside. Although the valley was right in front of him, it gave him a strange feeling that it did not exist in heaven and earth. In the valley, the fragrance of hundreds of flowers floated. When mixed together, not only did it not affect the fragrance, but it also became more unique. The essence of hundreds of flowers rose, forming a faint layer of strange mist around the valley. It was hazy. In the air, countless colorful butterflies were dancing happily among the flowers. Vaguely, it felt like a dream. It was like a perfect scene that would only appear in a dream. Patter! They walked all the way to the entrance of the valley and stepped into the valley. Di Tian is here to keep the appointment. I hope you won't blame me for disturbing you. He exhaled and his melodious voice spread into the valley. She did not rashly walk forward. I'm Chen-Shi. I'm waiting for you in the valley. As soon as she finished speaking, an elegant and ethereal voice came from the valley. It was like the sound of nature. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 2:15. Then I'll be disturbing you. Just by listening to the voice, Tian felt as if there was a clear spring water pouring into his heart. His entire mind unconsciously became comfortable. That unique sound of nature was probably hard to forget in the future. His initial curiosity was replaced by a natural feeling, as if he was paying a visit to an old friend. It made him have a kind of expectation to see the owner of the voice immediately. It was rude to come and visit. After all, he was once a human and grew up in Huaxia, an ancient country with a civilization of 5,000 years. Since he was young, he had come into contact with many etiquettes that ordinary people did not pay attention to. Although he grew up in the modern era, his nature was still traditional. Now that he was in the purple gold continent, the culture on the continent was like ancient times. Modern technology and civilization could not develop on this soil. After all, there were many immortal cultivators on the continent. As a result, some of his actions and mannerisms slowly became more ancient. After thinking for a while, he gently patted the storage bag. Waves of spiritual light appeared on the bag, and an ancient, seven-stringed ancient green zither appeared in his hand. This ancient zither looked like it had a unique style. There seemed to be traces of Imu Chi circulating in the zither. At the two ends of the zither, there were phoenixes flying in the air and phoenixes singing in harmony. The picture on the zither was vivid and lifelike, as if it really existed. Looking at it made people feel relaxed and happy. This zither was called the Fengluan zither. It was a treasure that Sakura had obtained after killing those demon souls in the zither domain. Of course, this was only an artifact embryo. Although the quality of the artifact embryo wasn't as miraculous as the purple drum he obtained back then, just the artifact embryo alone had the grade of a magic treasure. However, this Fengluan zither was also a high-grade magic treasure. If it was refined, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a top-grade magic treasure. If it was used as a natal magic treasure and nurtured carefully, it was not impossible for it to be promoted to a magic treasure immediately. He held the zither in his hand. He walked into the valley. Outside the valley and inside the valley, the artistic conception and even the scenery in front of him were like heaven and earth. A gentle breeze brushed past his face, and the fragrance of hundreds of flowers entered his nose. Moreover, every time he breathed, he seemed to be able to smell a completely different fragrance. After 100 breaths, he could experience hundreds of different fragrances. It was really soothing to the heart. It made people reluctant to leave, unknowingly immersed in it. An artistic conception similar to that of Tang Bohu's Song of the Peach Blossom Nunnery rose in his heart. Inside the Peach Blossom Nunnery, below the Peach Blossom Nunnery, below the Peach Blossom Nunnery rose. The Peach Blossom Immortal planted peach trees and picked peach blossoms to exchange for wine money. When he was sober, he would sit in front of the flowers, and when he was drunk, he would sleep under the flowers. Half drunk and half awake, day after day, flowers wither and bloom year after year. I wish I would die in wine, and not bow before chariots and horses. Carriage dust and horse footsteps are visible, wine cups and flower branches are hermit's fate. If one were to compare a hermit to a hermit, one would be on the ground while the other would be in the sky. If we compare wine and flowers to carriages and horses, how can I be idle when they are busy? The world laughs at me for being too crazy, and I laugh at them for not being able to see through me. He did not see the tombs of the heroes of the 5 mausoleums, nor did he see the fields without flowers, without wine, without hoe. The 100 Flowers Valley is indeed the 100 Flowers Valley. The scenery here is even more otherworldly than my myriad demon valley. It's hard not to be fast when cultivating in a place like this. De Chertion took a deep breath and walked in the direction of the voice. He glanced around and saw a pond in front of him. There was an elegant pavilion in the middle of the pond, and a girl in a lavender palace dress was standing at the side of the pavilion. She was looking at the lotus flowers outside the pavilion, and the vermilion bird beside her was chirping about something. Along the way, he saw countless flowers competing with each other. All kinds of strange flowers had their own style, and peonies were the most common. This also confirmed the vermilion bird's words that her sister liked peonies. The valley was not big, and it did not take long for him to walk into the pavilion. The girl stood with her back to him, and he could not see her face clearly. Just her back alone was enough to mesmerize people, and she exuded a unique elegance and nobility. But it could not be hidden. It flowed naturally. From this, he could also guess that she must be a peerless beauty. De Chertion, I took the liberty to visit you. I obtained this artifact by chance. I hope you don't dislike it. De Chertion looked at the back in front of him, and said without a word. Then, she put the guqin in her hand on the jade table in the pavilion. This time, it was Chun Shi who invited you to come. It's good that you can come. There's no need to bring a gift. The young girl slowly turned around and suddenly, that peerless face that could even cause the downfall of a country with words gradually appeared in front of Sakra's eyes. Simple and elegant, noble, graceful and elegant, and also natural and gentle. It was difficult to describe this unique temperament with a single word. It seemed that she had both. She was elegant, noble, graceful, and so on. She gave people a feeling that they couldn't help but have a good impression of her. My name is De Chertion. You are a senior of the demon clan in the southern barbarian. Please don't be rude when you come to visit. It's just a gift. Please don't refuse it. You can just call me Chertion. When De Chertion saw Chun Shi's peerless face, he couldn't help but be immersed in it. However, fortunately, he had seen many peerless faces before. In terms of appearance, Bai Hu was not inferior to her at all. However, the beauty of the two was different. Bai Hu was reflected in the kind of natural charm that flowed out of her. Chun Shi, on the other hand, was different. The moment he saw her, his heart couldn't help but thump. There was an inexplicable rhythm. He didn't dare to look at her more. Sister, brother D, you can stay here. You're being polite, I'm being polite. Since we're all together, it's good to sit and talk. Zhu Niao's eyes showed a hint of slyness. She looked at Chun Shi for a while, and then looked at De Chertion for a while, and said with a smile. After saying that, she even landed on the table first. On the table, there were already several kinds of spiritual fruits placed, and a pot of fine wine permeated the air. Well, Chun Shi doesn't like to be polite. Here are some fruits that are still edible. You can taste them. And this pot of wine is the 100 Flowers fairy wine that Chun Shi personally brewed. I heard that Chertion's Valley also has monkey wine. It's a good opportunity to taste this wine and see how it is. The two sat down facing each other. Chun Shi stretched out her snow-white hand, gently picked up the wine pot, and reached in front of De Chertion to help fill the wine cup. Looking at the perfect hand and a unique body fragrance, he couldn't help but be lost in thought for a while. However, he immediately turned around. In this regard, he couldn't help but secretly cry in his heart, De Chertion, oh De Chertion, what's wrong with you today? You're not like this usually. With my self-control, I shouldn't be so weak. He secretly warned himself. With a faint smile, he picked up the wine cup and looked at it. This wine was really extraordinary. It seemed sticky, but in fact, it was sparkling and translucent like jade. It was incomparably clear, like nectar. It looked very comfortable. When he put it in front of his nose and sniffed it gently, the faint wine fragrance entered his heart. There was the fragrance of flowers in the wine. It was fascinating. Then he took it to his mouth and poured it into his mouth. The wine flowed around the tip of his tongue, experiencing the charm of the wine. Suddenly, a picture appeared in his mind. It was as if he was in a field of flowers, and there were thousands of colorful butterflies flying around him. Tranquility, nature, and the various charms of flowers flashed in his heart one by one. It was as if one could appreciate the beauty of hundreds of flowers and thousands of colors in this wine. Each flower had its own unique charm. It was difficult to understand without careful observation, but it could be appreciated in this wine. The wine carried the strength of 100 flowers, the charm of 100 flowers. It could take people into a unique mood. Good wine. It's able to infuse the essence of the 100 flowers into the wine, leaving one with an endless aftertaste. It's as if you're truly in the midst of the flowers, forgetting to return. The name of the 100 flowers celestial wine is indeed worthy of its name. Even among the spirit wines, it's a rare high grade. I really admire Miss Chin Shi for being able to brew such a fairy wine. After a long time, he opened his eyes and praised it generously. This charm alone could already be called a spirit wine. What's more, when it was swallowed into the stomach, there were all kinds of wonderful things. If you like it, Chen Shi can give you some when you leave. Chen Shi smiled elegantly. Then she filled the wine cup again. Looking at Di Shirtian, she said, "If Chen Shi remembers correctly, you were not born in the southern barbarian lands, but moved in from outside 2 years ago." "Yes." Di Shirtian did not hesitate, nodded, and agreed in a deep voice. "This time you left the southern barbarian lands for more than a year and entered the secular world." Chen Shi dared to ask, "What do you think of the situation of the demon clan on the continent today?" Chen Shi seemed to ask something else. Like pigs and sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Di Shirtian's eyes flashed. He glanced at Chen Shi and said, "Some time ago, although the purpose of my departure was to learn zither skills in the secular world and did not set foot in the world of cultivators, I had a little contact and heard a lot of things." He took a deep breath, and his heart was very heavy. He said, "In today's world of cultivators, the human clan alone occupies countless rare materials between heaven and earth. There are countless sects and families. On the continent, the number of the human clan is innumerable. The heroes who emerge are like carps crossing the river, and they have become the protagonists of the continent. But the demon clan has declined to the point where it is almost exterminated. We have been reduced to the point where cultivators can only eliminate demons, build a reputation, and seize the Niden to increase their cultivation. If we hold on for a long time, the day of our demon clan's extinction is not far away." He was not distressed, but deeply touched. He was deeply worried about himself, the difficult situation of the demon clan, and the status of the demon clan on the continent. The words above were definitely not alarmist talk. If they did not change, this situation would happen sooner or later. That's right. Think about how prosperous our demon clan was in the ancient times. But now it has declined to this point. Unfortunately, the reproduction speed of our demon clan can't be compared with that of human beings. The desire of human cultivators to exterminate the demon race has never disappeared. It's a pity that there hasn't been a peerless powerhouse in our demon clan since ancient times. Chen Shi said, and his face was faintly gloomy. Obviously, he felt the same way. She was also a demon clan. As long as she had some understanding of the current situation of the demon clan, she would not be indifferent. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 216. In fact, both Chen Shi and Di Shirtian knew very well that the demon clan had fallen into such a situation not only because of external reasons, but also because of internal reasons. For example, it was difficult for the demon clan to have spiritual wisdom. The inheritance of the demon clan itself was broken. Many of the demon clan's most powerful secret methods were not passed down at all and were completely lost in the long river of time. Most of the demon clan didn't even have cultivation methods. They had been instinctively absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and moon. They didn't know how to use it. For example, demons were supposed to open up the meridians of the whole body and be able to channel the demon power. However, most of the demons were ignorant. They only knew to accumulate demon power in their bodies, but most of it was integrated into their bodies and couldn't be used. As a result, they couldn't tap their own potential, and the chances of breaking through to become a demon beast were greatly reduced. Moreover, those who could become a demon clan, for example, the king of a certain clan, even if such a demon clan gained sentience, they would not leave their own territory. They would do their own thing and stay in one place. Even if they were alone, they would not be able to do anything alone. Often, when they met a cultivator, they would gather a group of people and besiege them. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't resist. They were scattered and not concentrated, just like chopstick. One chopstick could be broken easily. If they were tied together, 10 or 100 chopsticks would be very difficult to break. Now the demon clan was like a pair of separated chopsticks. If they were broken one by one, they couldn't play much role at all. All these factors caused the demon clan to decline more and their situation to become more and more difficult. This point, with Di Shirtian's eyesight, it could be said that he had long understood it. However, knowing was one thing. It was quite difficult to change. Therefore, he could only silently develop his own forces. From nothing to something. Only then could he have a unique, cohesive force. Like the demon clan in the southern barbarian region, they were the kings of the demon clan. He also wanted to subdue them, but was it realistic? Demon clan was not like those demons and spirit beasts. They had their own wisdom. How could they easily surrender to other demon clans? It was not easy for Di Shirtian. He had the ability to subdue them now. Otherwise, even if they were subdued, they would probably not listen to his orders. Since that was the case, why should he do it? He should first build his own team with his own hand. Let his subordinates grow, develop to a certain extent, and make a name for themselves. At that time, there would be no need to subdue them. Naturally, there would be demons coming to submit to him. Di Shirtian and Chen, she talked about various things while drinking. His initial wariness gradually disappeared. From their conversation, he could feel that Chen she did not harbor any hostility towards him. Coupled with the natural gentleness, they slowly became familiar with each other. The atmosphere became harmonious. At this moment, the vermilion bird appeared to be very sensible. It stood to the side and listened quietly without interrupting. There were some things that Zhang Xian didn't quite understand, so he tilted his head and fell into deep thought. Shirtian, I'm sure you've been curious about my existence for a long time. Or rather, you've been suspicious. Why didn't I do anything when the human cultivators entered the southern barbarian lands in large numbers? Even when a core formation cultivator sneaked an attack on Sister Medusa. After drinking for 30 minutes, Chen she smiled elegantly, as if he was deliberately helping Di Shirtian to get rid of the doubts in his heart. He suddenly mentioned. Di Shirtian's eyes flashed. Indeed, he had always been extremely curious about Chen Shi. She was not among the demon beast kings in the southern barbarian lands. It was obvious that she must have already condensed an inner core. However, such a powerhouse was so low-key in the southern barbarian lands, even to the point of being unknown. Only a few demon beast kings knew about her. Moreover, those who knew were all very respectful towards her. Or rather, it was not wrong to say that they respected her. She was obviously a powerhouse among the demon clan, a core formation demon. If she was willing to do anything back then, those thousands of cultivators would have been wiped out in an instant. The Lee family ancestor who sneaked an attack on Medusa could also be easily killed. Yet, he had never made a single move. It was as if she didn't care about the life and death of the southern barbarian demon clan at all. Even so, she was still able to make the Black Ape King and the others respect her. If it wasn't strange, then there must be a secret behind it. Back then, Tion felt that she was too mysterious because of these things, so he didn't dare to come here rashly. He had postponed it until today. Now that he came here, he wanted to know the reason. That's right. I'm really puzzled about this. Although I don't know how strong you are, I can see that as long as you do something, those crises in the past can be easily resolved. Moreover, I don't understand why there are still cultivators who dare to enter the southern barbarian lands to hunt spirit beasts and demons when you're in the southern barbarian lands. Logically speaking, all of this can be avoided. Tion asked without hesitation. So, when you entered the southern barbarian lands back then, you used your methods against those cultivators who entered the southern barbarian lands. You even got the underworld raven, the Black Ape King, and the others to join forces and kill thousands of cultivators. She seemed to casually mention something. Tion's heart froze. The demonic chi in his body began to condense in an instant. He had always thought that this was a rather secretive thing, but he never expected that she would see through it. Looking at his words, it was almost as if he had seen it with his own eyes. How could he not be shocked? It was as if stormy waves had been stirred up in his heart. Don't be nervous. I don't mean to blame you. She chuckled softly and said, perhaps what you did was not wrong. Blindly enduring and giving in might not be a good way to survive. However, do you know that although your actions back then seemed to be straightforward, it also sowed the seeds of disaster? She really did not have any intention of blaming him for what happened back then. Every demon clan had their own thoughts. Some were tolerant, some were silent, and some were unwilling to be left out. They had ambitions. Of course, from Tion's point of view, there was nothing wrong with what happened back then. From Shi's point of view, she had to consider the safety of the entire southern barbarian lands. It was really difficult to say clearly. So what if it's the root of disaster? A man should be strong. My demon clan has been silent for too long. If we continue to be silent, we will not be far from extinction. I, Tion, am definitely not someone who can be trampled on. Whoever wants to kill me, I will kill them. Whoever wants to kill me must pay a sufficient price. I don't think I did anything wrong back then. It was a disaster, but also an opportunity. It depends on whether I can grasp it. Tion's heroic spirit suddenly rose, and an indescribable expression appeared on his face. Faintly, there was a natural pride. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter now. She smiled indifferently and did not continue to talk about that topic. Instead, she changed the topic and said, in fact, my existence has always been a secret in the southern barbarian land. The immortal cultivators have never given up on destroying my demon clan. However, my demon clan is not without a trump card. Legend has it that there are still some big demons in hibernation. If you really want to wake them up, the human immortal cultivators may not be able to bear the consequences of mutual destruction. However, the attention to the demon clan has never decreased. They pay special attention to the demon king of the demon clan. If they find the demon king and can kill it, they will definitely send strong people to kill it. The demon clan that has formed an inner core will not be let go. The immortal cultivators don't want to give the demon clan any chance to develop. If I take action, my existence will definitely not be hidden from the immortal cultivators. At that time, once those big sects make up their minds, they will definitely send strong people to the southern barbarian land. At that time, not only will I be in danger, but even the entire demon clan in the southern barbarian lands will not be able to escape. If I don't take action, only a few demon clans in the southern barbarian lands will be hunted down and killed. But if I take action, 1 or 2 of them will die. Chen, she said with a strange kind of tiredness and sigh. Such a thing pressed on her shoulders, and the condemnation she received from time to time had already made her a little tired. So that's how it is, damn it. When Di Tian heard this, his 2 eyes suddenly constricted, and the wine cup in his hand was crushed into powder on the spot with a paw sound. The wine sprinkled between his fingers, and his face was cold. He said, I, Di Tian, don't believe that the immortal cultivators can be strong forever. I don't care about others who stopped the demon clan from being strong, but my myriad demon valley will never surrender. There was a trace of firmness in his voice. There was a kind of persistence. No one could stop the development of the myriad demon valley. This would be his foundation. Do you know that my 100 Flowers Valley is actually a place of inheritance of the southern barbarian demon clan? And I am the guardian of the inheritance. At this time, Chen, she suddenly threw out an even more shocking statement. A place of inheritance? Di Tian said in surprise. Yes. Chen, she nodded and said, Chen, she was born in the 100 Flowers Valley because of an opportunity. What's more, I got the inheritance of the Fairy of 100 Flowers of the demon clan. I inherited everything she left in the valley. Among them, there are some ancient books and cultivation methods left by the demon clan. After sorting them out, I made them a place for the inheritance of the demon clan. Any demon clan, as long as they can be promoted to a demon king, can come to the valley to choose a cultivation method to cultivate. Underworld Raven and the others came to the valley to choose in the past. This sentence was like a heavy bomb exploding in the bottom of his heart. Di Tian's eyes immediately became brighter than ever. He had always been very clear that a cultivation method absolutely had immeasurable benefits for a demon clan's cultivation. Without a cultivation method, every step forward required a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as well as years. Back then, if he hadn't obtained the bloodline inheritance and obtained the tiger roar technique, he would still be an ordinary tiger in Tiger Hill. How could he have today's achievements? Not to mention his current cultivation level. Everything proved how important a cultivation method was. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 217. He really didn't expect that there would be such a big surprise in front of him. He thought to himself, the tiger roar technique is not very useful for my future cultivation. Once I condense the Niden, there will be no follow-up cultivation method. Originally, I wanted to find a way to cultivate temporarily by building the demon vein. If there is a cultivation method passed down by the demon clan that I can choose, it can make up for my shortcomings in this aspect. I can also choose a cultivation method from among them? Di Tian suddenly looked at Chen Shi with bright eyes. Not only did he not feel clear about Chen Shi, but he also felt that she seemed to be shrouded in a fog, full of magical colors, making people unable to see through her. Just a short conversation gave him an incomparable shock. It seemed that nothing in the southern wilderness could be hidden from her eyes. Not only was her cultivation mysterious, but she also said something about the inheritance of the demon clan. After coming to the Zijin mainland, Chen Shi could be said to be the most mysterious and the most unfathomable person he had met so far. Of course. Chen Shi smiled and said, as long as you can become a demon king, you are qualified to come to the 100 Flowers Valley to choose a demon cultivation method. With your cultivation, it is already enough. That's why I asked the vermilion bird to invite you over. However, in Chen Shi's opinion, it seems that you have already had a demon cultivation method. Moreover, you should be walking the path of ancient demon cultivation. I don't know if Chen Shi is wrong. She casually glanced at Di Tian. This glance was very clear, but it had a feeling that she could see through people. The definition of a demon king was not complicated. In the demon clan, when promoting to a demon beast, there was a high chance that they could stimulate their own innate magical powers. Of course, many demon beasts couldn't stimulate their innate magical powers because of their lack of foundation. There were only a few demon beasts that could have innate magical powers, and these demon beasts that could stimulate their innate magical powers were called demon kings. Innate magical powers represented potential. It was the symbol of a king. Ancient Yao cultivators? Di Shirtian couldn't help but ask in confusion. He himself relied on the inheritance of his bloodline to step onto the path of demons, so he was naturally very lacking in various kinds of understanding. How could he understand whether or not the ancient era was ancient, so it was inevitable for him to be puzzled. Chen Shi smiled gently. Seeing Di Shirtian's puzzled expression, he guessed that Di Shirtian might not understand the difference. This was not strange. The Yao race had lost their inheritance many years ago. The monster clan was also born and nurtured by the heavens and grew up on their own. They were not like the human clan, who could have families and sects to pass down their legacies. You have only cultivated for a short period of time, and you haven't received any guidance from the demon race's seniors. Perhaps you don't know that there are two paths to cultivation in our demon race. One is to focus on our demon body. After we reach the demon beast realm, we begin to form our demon veins through the demon body. Therefore, when the demonic chi was channeled, it would naturally nourish the demonic body and strengthen the demonic body. The number of demonic veins one had was related to one's cultivation method. Usually, different cultivation methods would result in different demonic veins. It was molded according to the cultivation method. This is the ancient demon cultivation. At this moment, Chen Shi was like a tireless scholar, helping to answer Di Shirtian's doubts and instilling some things about the demon race, cultivation, and even various problems. In this aspect, Chen Shi's breadth of mind was something that few people could match. Among the demon race, most of the demon race would cultivate on their own even if they were to cultivate. Who would so easily divulge what they knew? But she did. Originally, she could have kept all the demonic cultivation methods she obtained in the 100-Flower Valley to herself, but she still opened them up to the other demonic clans. All of these things clearly showed that she was not alone. In Chen Shi's heart, he was also looking forward to the day when the demon race could develop. He wanted to enhance the strength of the demon race as much as possible and strengthen the foundation of the southern barbarian lands. In the bottom of his heart, Di Shirtian slowly understood why the demon kings in the southern barbarian lands showed such a respectful expression when they heard Chen Shi's name. It turns out that building demonic veins is the way of ancient demon cultivation. Then what is the second cultivation method? Di Shirtian asked curiously. Unconsciously, he began to immerse himself in this strange knowledge. The second way is not to build demonic veins, but to overcome the power of the transformation tribulation. At the moment of condensing the Niden and transforming, the meridians in the body are all modeled according to the human body. The human body is a natural Taoist body. The human body and the meridians of the human body are the most in line with the natural body of heaven and earth. The meridians correspond to the heavenly cycle and run through the whole body, like an independent small world. There is a saying that there is a small world in the body and a big world outside the body. Once the meridians of the whole body are molded, they can be closer to heaven and earth like human beings. Cultivation is twice the result with half the effort. It is easier to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, the tempering of the demon body will be slightly inferior. This path is now the orthodox path of demon cultivation. It is also faster to cultivate demon art. Dawn went on to explain the second type of demonic cultivation method. Obviously, she knew a lot about it, and knew that the legacy of Goddess Manyflowers would be far more beneficial than the legacy of Sakura Buddha's own bloodline. It was understandable that she knew a lot. Then I wonder which of the two methods is stronger? Shirtian's eyes flashed as he asked again. In the past, when he wanted to know, no one could explain for him. Now that there was a knowledgeable Chun-Shi in front of him, how could he let go of such a great opportunity? Naturally, he would ask if he had any doubts. While Chun-Shi was speaking, Zhang Xian listened attentively, committing every single word to memory, not daring to miss out on a single word. Ancient demon cultivation is the closest to the essence of demon cultivation. Regardless of whether it is close combat or learning various demon arts, it can be both. Orthodox demon cultivation takes shortcuts and abandons the demon body. It is the fastest to start cultivating. It can cultivate various demon arts, but in close combat, the demon body will be weaker than the demon body of ancient demon cultivation. In the end, it will be more difficult to advance. At the end, it is all the same. When Chun-Shi heard Shirtian's question, she couldn't help but nod inwardly. To be able to think of the pros and cons, he was very meticulous. Shirtian already had a result in his mind. It seemed that ancient demon cultivation was difficult at first, then easy. Whether it was the demon body or demon essence, they were all cultivated side by side. As for orthodox demon cultivation, it was easy at first, then difficult. If one only chose one of them and gave up on cultivating the demon body, the speed of cultivation would naturally be much faster. And the path that could truly reach the peak of demon cultivation should be the path of ancient demon cultivation. According to Chun-Shi, ancient demon cultivation walked the path of demon meridian formation, and this demon meridian formation seems to be different according to the cultivation method. The number of demon meridian formation and the method of formation are probably very particular. If I rashly form the 7 emotions and 6 desires meridian formation, would I have already created a unique ancient demon cultivation method? He pondered secretly in his mind. He couldn't help but think about this. Even for ancient demon cultivation, the speed of forming demon meridian was different. There was no method of forming a unique demon meridian in the Tiger Roar technique, but it was the orthodox method of using demon essence to condense and shape. If the demon meridian was formed that way, it might be on the path of ancient demon cultivation, but it would only be an ordinary ancient demon cultivation. And forming the 7 emotions and 6 desires meridian might accidentally be on the right path. After chatting for a while, Sakura also mentioned that he wanted to make a trip to the land of inheritance to choose a cultivation method. Chun-Shi didn't stop him. He let the vermilion bird lead him there. The land of inheritance was deep in the valley. Under the vermilion bird's lead, they came to a quaint karst cave. In front of the cave, there were 2 strange golden flowers the size of a small house. The strange flower was extremely ugly. It had a large, ferocious mouth filled with sharp teeth. It was a terrifying sight to behold. One on the left and one on the right, standing on both sides of the cave. It was frightening. Big Brother D, these 2 flowers are called man-eating flowers. They are very powerful. Big Sister sent them to guard this cave. Usually, without Big Sister's orders, anyone who approaches this place will be devoured by them. But don't worry, with Zhu'er here, they won't hurt anyone. Brother D, hurry up and go in. Remember, you can only stay in there for 4 hours. When the time is up, come out. The vermilion bird called out clearly. Looking at the 2 man-eating flowers in front of the cave, she was not afraid at all. Man-eating flowers? Shirtian sized them up carefully and felt the ferocious aura emitted from their bodies. Looking at the 2 big mouths, he was secretly shocked. Those mouths were full of teeth, as if they were ready to devour the living beings in front of them at any time. They were unusually ferocious. Vaguely, they gave him a strong sense of threat. However, he didn't stay for long and entered the cave. As soon as they entered, a huge dragon-breaking stone fell down from the cave entrance and sealed the exit. There were luminous pearls illuminating the cave, making it as bright as day. All kinds of things could be seen clearly. Time was limited, so he ignored everything else and walked quickly into the depth. Seeing the dragon breaking stone falling, the vermilion bird flapped her wings and quickly flew back to the pavilion. In the blink of an eye, she returned to the pavilion and saw that she was still sitting inside. She retracted her wings and landed on the jade table. Looking at Chen she called out, "Sister, what do you think of my brother D? Shirtian's cultivation speed is indeed very fast. However, the reason for this should be because he has unlocked the bloodline inheritance and obtained some kind of cultivation method from the inheritance. That's why he can cultivate to his current realm without any obstacles. However, something seems to have gone wrong with him. I feel a strange sadness from him. What's even stranger is that this sadness doesn't seem to be something that he has. This makes me a little confused." She had a puzzled expression. At some point, a faint purple petal appeared between her slender fingers. She played with it gently. "Hee, sister, that's not what I'm asking. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading." Chapter 218. Then what do you want to ask? She shook her head and looked at Zhu Niao with a chuckle. Zhu is asking, "Sister, do you like Big Brother D?" Zhu Niao asked with a smile. However, judging from her tone, it was mostly a joke. It was just a kind of teasing. "Hey! Zhu what are you thinking about in that little head of yours?" Shi's face couldn't help but blush. She said, "It's the first time I've met D. Shirtian. How can I like him? At most, I'm just a little curious." Curious indeed, just curious. With her cultivation, she couldn't see through what kind of cultivation method D. Shirtian practiced at a glance. Why did she have a strange sense of sadness? Moreover, D. Shirtian's actions unconsciously aroused her curiosity. There were 2 big demon clans gathered in the myriad demon valley, and there were actually several demon beasts. Thousands of spirit beasts. She couldn't help but secretly raise her eyebrows at this speed of development. Also, the strategies and tricks that he kept showing subverted her understanding in her heart. Like the conversation just now, in fact, for other monster kings, she had never had such a conversation. Just curious? Zhu just saw Big Brother D in a daze for a long time when he saw you. If Big Brother D becomes my brother-in-law, then Zhu will be able to drink wine every day. As Zhu Niao spoke, she suddenly talked about wine. Her eyes immediately lit up. Zhu don't let your imagination run wild. I've never thought about these things. Sister's heavenly tribulation is coming soon. This heavenly tribulation is very important to me. There can't be the slightest mistake. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll be consigned to eternal damnation. She raised her eyes and looked at the void. Her eyes were full of indescribable colors. There was a faint trace of anxiety. The heavenly tribulation this time was far too important to her. It could be said that it was related to her life's achievements. It was a tribulation that all vegetation spirits had to overcome. Once they passed it, they would be able to completely fuse with their bodies. When that time came, their cultivation would be able to progress at a tremendous pace. They would truly step onto the path of demon cultivation. On the other hand, if he couldn't, what awaited him would be eternal damnation. Elder sister, Zhu believes that you will definitely be able to get through this. Otherwise, I'll invite Big Sister Medusa and the others over for the tribulation transcendence. There won't be a problem. The vermilion bird's tone was unusually firm. Yes. She nodded elegantly. She didn't say anything and just sat quietly in the pavilion. The 100-flower essence in the valley immediately rushed into her body like swallows returning to their nest. Under the contrast of the colorful 100-flower essence, Shi's body had a faint mysterious color. He was like the king of flowers. At this time, D. Shirtian had entered the cave of inheritance. He walked all the way to the end of the cave. At the end of the cave, he discovered a row of shelves refined from stone. On these shelves, ancient books were placed upon them. These ancient books were not stored in jade slips, but were instead made from various spirit bamboos, spirit trees, and even animal skins. It was just like the bamboo slips from the spring and autumn period. Placed on the shelves, they looked unusually simple and unadorned. Casually glancing around, Tian also discovered that there weren't many ancient books here. There were only a dozen or so volumes. However, he wasn't surprised. There had been a lapse in the demon race. Various demon cultivation methods had long been lost. To be able to preserve a dozen or so volumes was already quite a feat. It was even more fortunate to be able to observe them. Patter! Time was short, so he didn't waste any time. He walked forward and saw a bamboo slip made of bamboo at the top. He reached out and took the bamboo slip down and quickly opened it. Dark moon howling technique, the name of the cultivation method, fell into his eyes. Just by looking at the name of this cultivation method, he could see that this was a demon cultivation method that leaned towards and cold. It didn't seem to match Tian. However, he didn't put it down. Instead, he quickly browsed through it. As he browsed, he carefully memorized every word in it in his mind. Relying on his photographic memory, he had to memorize this cultivation method by force. For someone who only knew how to memorize and didn't deliberately try to understand the meaning, the speed at which he browsed through it could be said to be quite fast. It didn't take long for him to memorize this demonic cultivation method. Then, without hesitation, he put the cultivation method back and picked up another ancient book. Cultivation methods are the foundation for the continuation of a race. Originally, I planned to find a way to go to other places in the future to find some ancient books in the cultivation world for Chihua and the others to cultivate in the future. I didn't expect to be able to fulfill my wish in the 100 Flowers Valley in advance. It seems that the heavens are helping me. Sakura diligently memorized the contents of the ancient book, and at the same time, he secretly pondered in his mind. He had never neglected the importance of cultivation method. In fact, it could be said that he attached great importance to them. However, it wasn't as easy to obtain ancient books as he imagined. Back then, after exterminating thousands of cultivators, the various ancient books obtained were only some basic cultivation methods. They were all chi refinement cultivation methods, and most of them were duplicates. There were only a dozen books that were truly useful in total. Not a single book that was truly helpful for cultivation. Originally, he planned to find a way to get some in the cultivation world in the future. However, the cultivation methods in the cultivation world were different from those of the demon clan. Even if he found them, they might not be directly useful. The problem that had always been in the bottom of his heart was finally solved today. The inherited cultivation methods of the 100 Flowers Valley. If he memorized all of them and silently wrote them down one by one after returning to the valley, they would be passed down as the cultivation methods of the valley. At that time, Chihua and the others would be able to choose their own cultivation methods to cultivate. Then, the speed of cultivation and even the strength of the cultivators would improve greatly as a result. Cultivation methods and books had always been the foundation for the continuation of a civilization. Tian had long had an idea in mind. That was to build a place in the valley specifically to store cultivation methods and ancient books, such as the Sutra Depository. In the future, all the ancient books and cultivation methods they obtained would be stored there. Then, the demon clan in the valley would no longer have to worry about not having cultivation method. Of course, there was still a long way to go. He carefully memorized the contents of each ancient book. In this way, his speed was extremely fast. He only held each book in his hand for a while, then put it down again and picked up another ancient book to read. During this reading, Tian also discovered something. Indeed, each of these ancient books was a cultivation method for demon cultivation. However, the strange thing was that most of these cultivation methods were orthodox demon cultivation methods. There was only one ancient demon cultivation method. That ancient book was called the Celestial Demon God Slaying Technique. De Chertion also focused on this ancient book. He found that even this cultivation method was not complete. It was just an incomplete book. Only the first half was recorded, and the second half was not recorded. It seemed that it had been lost long ago. Even so, this cultivation method was extraordinary. Its cultivation method was not demonic at all. It was a supreme cultivation method to cultivate in the midst of slaughter. The demon meridian created was indeed different from the ordinary demon meridian recorded in the tiger roar technique. The demon meridian created was called the God-slaying meridian. It was formed from boundless killing intent and ferocious chi. If it was successfully created, its killing power would be unparalleled. The more one killed, the stronger the power, and the faster one's cultivation would increase. If one could kill millions, their power would be so strong that they could slay God. It was a demonic art that grew in the midst of slaughter. Cultivating it was destined to stir up a boundless rain of blood. It was a cultivation method that advanced forward over thousands of corpses, and this incomplete book could be cultivated all the way to the great demon realm. As for how to cultivate after that, it was not clear. However, even so, great demons were experts that could move unhindered between heaven and earth. Cultivating the celestial demon god slaying technique would increase one's battle strength and could challenge those of a higher level. Unparalleled killing power. What a domineering cultivation method. It is indeed to create the demon meridian. According to the description of this cultivation method, the demon meridian was the foundation if one followed the path of ancient demon cultivation. The creation of each demon meridian could push the cultivation method to a new level. The method of creation was related to the operation of the cultivation method. The more demon meridian, the more complete the cultivation method. The celestial demon god slaying technique actually requires the creation of 12 demon meridian. It penetrates the entire body and uses the killing power to temper the demon body. It is indeed incisive and miraculous. Although it was only an incomplete book, one could tell two from one and see the essence of ancient cultivation methods. It was exactly as Chun-Shi had said. Each of the created demon meridian had its own function and could connect the chi and blood around the body. It penetrated the entire body. It was closely linked together. The more demon meridian, the more exquisite the cultivation method, and the higher the grade. For example, the celestial demon god slaying technique recorded that there were a total of 12 demon meridian that required the creation of demon meridian. This was already the rarest supreme cultivation method of ancient demon cultivation. It was a supreme cultivation method that could reach the peak. Unfortunately, there were only 6 of them here. The remaining 6 did not record how to create them at all. They had already been lost. 12 Fey veins is already a top cultivation technique among ancient cultivation technique. If I were to create the desire veins of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, wouldn't that mean that I could create 13 veins? That would be one more vein than this celestial Fey god slaying technique. He could not help but feel restless. If that was really the case, then perhaps the path that he had taken was really the right one. He could really walk a completely different path and create a supreme cultivation method of demon cultivation. However, this thought immediately cooled down. How difficult was it to create a cultivation method? It was definitely not something that could be created overnight. The 7 emotions and 6 desires meridian was one of the most difficult desires in the world for living beings to grasp. Even touching it required one to be careful, for fear of being immersed in it. To create a cultivation method with this as the foundation was undoubtedly an extremely difficult matter. Without great wisdom and great perseverance, it would be like the moon in the water, a flower in the mirror. It would be nothing more than an illusory bubble. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please visit www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 219. However, it seems that I have no other way out. He scanned the dozen or so ancient scrolls in front of him. He had already memorized more than half of them. Among these ancient scrolls, there was an important book that outlined all kinds of common knowledge about demon cultivation. It was called the Demon Awakening Record. It was not a demonic cultivation art, but a basic demonic book that was given to spiritual beasts and demons that had just gained intelligence to understand demon cultivation. It recorded some simple information about the differences between ancient demonic cultivators and orthodox demonic cultivators, as well as the things to pay attention to during cultivation. It also recorded some of the problems one would encounter during cultivation, from spirit beasts to demons, and so on. The Demon Awakening Record had a summary of everything. The Demon Awakening Record had the word awaken in it, which meant that this was a demonic book that enlightened the demon race. By the way, the ancient scrolls here were all recorded using a strange method. The words on them were the demon race's demon language. This demon language was very strange. Even if you didn't recognize it, as long as you were from the demon race, you would naturally understand the meaning of the words after seeing it. It seemed to be an innate ability of the demon race. In the book, he discovered something that made him smile bitterly. Orthodox demon cultivation was fine. When the meridians in the body condensed into an inner core, they would be exactly the same as the meridians in the human body. Therefore, the cultivation techniques that they cultivated, even the cultivation techniques that immortal cultivators cultivated, could be easily cultivated. However, after cultivating, the characteristics of the demon aura would not change. It was briefly mentioned in the book that in ancient times, the reason why humans were able to rise to power was because they had learned cultivation techniques from the demon clan. It could be said that the origin of human cultivation techniques was actually derived from the demon clan. That wasn't all. What truly made Sakra smile bitterly and cry out that he was caught in a trap of his own making was that he discovered one thing. The ancient demon cultivators walked the path of building demon meridians, and that demon meridians were extraordinarily important. If one followed the method in the roaring tiger technique, it would be like a blank piece of paper. It would have no characteristics. This also meant that if one wanted to cultivate another technique, there would be no hindrance. One could directly dye the white paper with other colors. In other words, if he had formed his demonic meridian normally back then, he could have easily switched to cultivating the celestial fiend divine slaying technique. But now, he had formed the desire meridian, the sorrow meridian. If he wanted to cultivate other techniques, he would have to abolish his grief meridian. However, it was difficult to create a demon vein, and even more difficult to destroy it. Unless one had the unique elixir of the demon clan, the meridian cleansing elixir. Legend had it that the elixir was made from a kind of spiritual fruit called the dustless fruit. It could only be refined with the help of various medicinal materials and secret methods. The dustless fruit usually only grew on the kind of ethereal cliffs where the essence of the sun and the moon was gathered. It absorbed the essence of the clouds and mist, and by chance, it could grow into a dustless tree. It was a rare sight. Even if he could find it, the refining method of the meridian cleansing pill had been lost for God knows how many years. In other words, due to his grief meridian, he had almost no other way to cultivate other cultivation methods. There is no such thing as an absolute demon. I don't believe that I can't create a cultivation method that belongs to me. He secretly made up his mind. Since there was no way out, he could only keep moving forward. However, to create a cultivation method, he had to have sufficient knowledge and a solid foundation. Otherwise, everything would be like the moon in the water or a castle in the air. With a firm belief in his heart, the ancient scrolls in front of him became even more precious. Seeing that more than half the time had passed, he did not hesitate and continued to memorize the contents of the ancient scrolls one by one, deeply imprinting them in his heart. With his photographic memory, he had already memorized all the ancient scrolls on the shelf by the time was up. As for the rest, he could slowly think about it when he went back. After reading the ancient scrolls, there was no point in staying in the land of inheritance any longer. He put everything back and walked to the entrance of the cave with firm step. Strangely enough, the dragon-breaking stone that originally fell down slowly rose again when he came out. The first thing he saw was the vermilion bird that was flying happily in front of the cave. "Big Brother D, you've come out. Big Sister has been waiting for you." The vermilion bird happily folded her wings and landed on his shoulder with her petite body. "That's good. I was just about to thank your sister." Tion smiled faintly. Thinking of the huge gains he had gained in the cave, his usually indifferent expression became much gentler. "Hee, then let's go quickly." With the vermilion bird by his side, the two man-eating flowers outside the cave did not move at all. Of course, if someone came alone in the situation, they would probably go crazy on the spot. It would not be a pleasant thing to be swallowed into their ugly mouth. Not long after, they returned to the pavilion again. When She saw Tion, he nodded slightly and said, "There are not many ancient scrolls of the demon clan in the 100 Flowers Valley. I don't know if you have chosen a suitable cultivation method in there." "Not at all. There may not seem to be many ancient scrolls in there, but in fact they are the most I have ever seen. This time, you let me enter and choose a cultivation method. I won't say any more words of thanks. If there is anything in the future, just send someone to the Myriad Demon Valley to inform me. If there is anything, I will come as soon as possible." Tion nodded slightly. Although taking out various cultivation methods was voluntary behavior of Shi, it was undeniable that he owed her a favor. He had always been clear about kindness and hatred. No matter if it was hatred or kindness, as long as there was a chance, he would not tolerate it. He did not like the feeling of owing people things. This time, the cultivation methods he memorized in the Cave of Inheritance were of great importance to the development of the Myriad Demon Valley. He had to remember this favor. When he saw the Black Ape King and others, they all showed a respectful look when they mentioned Shi. Now, he had a deep understanding. They all got precious cultivation methods from her, so how could they not be respectful? She nodded and smiled faintly. Without saying more about this matter, they sat down together in the pavilion. "You left the southern barbarian lands this time and went to the secular world. I don't know if you have heard of something?" "You mean?" He raised his eyebrows and looked at Shi in confusion. "Heavenly Demon's Secret Realm." She opened her red lips slightly and spat out a sentence. This sentence also made Tion's heart skip a beat. His eyes immediately fell on Shi's unparalleled face, and he thought to himself, how does she know about this? Logically speaking, she should have stayed in the southern barbarian lands and never gone out. However, from this sentence, he understood that she must have known about the Heavenly Demon's Secret Realm for a long time, so there was no need to hide it. He nodded and said, "I have indeed heard of it. When I was outside, I overheard many cultivators talking about the Heavenly Demon's Secret Realm. It is said that the Heavenly Demon's Secret Realm only opens once every few thousand years, and every time it opens, it will attract most of the cultivators. The Heavenly Demon's Secret Realm has the word Heavenly Demon. Could it be that this secret realm has something to do with our demon clan?" His eyes flashed. Long ago, he had a faint feeling that this secret realm should be related to the demon clan. Or, it should be left behind by the ancestors of the demon clan. She looked at Tion with more attention in her eyes. She nodded and said, Yes, the heavenly demon secret realm is a secret realm left behind by an expert of the demon clan who had reached the heavenly demon realm in antiquity times. It is said that in the secret realm, not only were there countless treasures that he collected in his life left behind, he also left behind his inheritance, a large number of secret treasures of the demon clan. Most importantly, there is a pagoda in the secret realm. Speaking of the pagoda, even her expression slowly became serious. She seemed to be very concerned. Pagoda? Deshirtian muttered doubtfully. Yes, this pagoda is said to be the most precious treasure that the heavenly demon carried with him. It has the ability to defy the natural order. Every time the secret realm opens, our demon clan will send experts, including the demon king, to enter the secret realm to see if they can obtain the inheritance of the heavenly demon and inherit everything in the secret realm. The experts of the demon clan, from low to high cultivation, were Spirit Beast, Spirit Monster, Demon Beast, Demon King, Great Demon, Demon Saint, Heavenly Demon, and Demon Immortal. The Demon Immortal realm, the highest level, was already a peerless expert in the world. Experts who could reverse heaven and earth, and reverse yin and yang were truly existences standing at the peak of the world. Since antiquity times, such experts could be counted on one's fingers. The heavenly demon was only one step away from the demon immortal realm, so one could imagine how strong he was. What kind of value did the secret realm left behind by such an existence have? Coupled with the inheritance of the heavenly demon, it was even more immeasurable. Previously in the cave of inheritance, he might not be clear about other things, but he was already clear about the division of the cultivation realms of the demon clan. Naturally, he could understand the value of the secret realm. You mean, when the secret realm opens, we southern barbarians will go in together? Deshirtian frowned slightly, pondered for a moment, and said, however, the current situation of our demon clan doesn't seem to be suitable for us to meet the immortal cultivators. This worry was not unreasonable. If the immortal cultivators and the demon clan went in together when the heavenly demon secret realm opened, they would not need to enter the secret realm. If they met each other, they would fight directly outside the secret realm. Given the current situation of the demon clan, if they fought head-on with the immortal cultivators, the result would be worrying. Who said that there is only one entrance to the heavenly demon secret realm? Chen Shi's lips curled into a mysterious smile. He said meaningfully, from the time Deshirtian entered the 100 Flowers Valley to the time he went out, he stayed for a full day. After leaving the 100 Flowers Valley, Deshirtian looked at the direction and rushed straight to the withered bone wilderness in the north. Sister, what do you think of Brother D? Don't tell Zhu that you don't have any opinions. The vermilion bird giggled as she blinked her eyes. After seeing Sakura leave, she once again questioned. Zhu clearly remembers that elder sister had never let anyone enter the cave of inheritance before. Even when the Black Ape King and the others came to choose a cultivation technique, it was elder sister who helped them choose. Today you treated Brother D very differently. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 220. The cultivation methods in the Cave of Inheritance were so important that no one would be allowed to enter easily. Once one entered, it would not be difficult to memorize the cultivation methods and ancient books. It could be said that the cultivation methods inside would be given to the other party. In the past, when Medusa and the others came, they did not receive the same treatment as Deshirtian did today. They all first told the direction they wanted to cultivate and some of their own situations, and then she chose the most suitable cultivation method for them to cultivate. It could be said that in the 100 Flowers Valley, or even the entire southern barbarian, the number of demons who entered the Cave of Inheritance could be counted on one hand. However, this time, Chen Shi unexpectedly let Di Shirtian enter the cave. This was simply giving him all the ancient books in the cave. Zhu, I told you a long time ago, don't think about these trivial things with your little head. Chen Shi helplessly stretched out her hand and gently knocked on the head of the vermilion bird. She looked at the void and murmured, "Hasn't your big brother Di been working hard to develop the Myriad Demon Valley? He is one of the few people who know how to develop their forces. The Myriad Demon Valley has great potential, but it lacks many necessary factors for development. Cultivation methods are one of them. Does sister want to help big brother Di?" The vermilion bird's eyes lit up and looked at Chen Shi curiously. "Yes, I feel a kind of temperament in Di Shirtian that the black ape, the golden lion king, and Medusa don't have. It's as if he was born with a kind of king's temperament. He has the potential to lead a group of demons. Since he wants to be a king and develop a force, then I'll help him. I'll help him and see how far he can go. Perhaps the situation of the southern barbarian might really change because of him." Chen Shi's eyes became a little deep, as if she was not looking at the void, but the distant future. Yes, Zhu also believes that big brother Di will definitely succeed. Sister, you didn't see that in the Myriad Demon Valley, there are thousands of spirit beasts. If they develop, they will definitely be very amazing. There was a faint confidence in Zhu's tone. Di Shirtian rode the demonic wind and quickly swept through the southern barbarian lands, heading north in a straight line. The further they walked, the more desolate it became. In the northern part of the southern barbaric lands, it was practically a forbidden area that no living creature dared to approach. The desolation of bones was incomparably vast, and the bones within the desolation of bones were piled up like mountains. It was unknown how many were buried there, and just the aura of death emitted from the desolation of bones was sufficient to make it so that not many living creatures dared to live within a few thousand miles of the desolation of bones. Furthermore, in the wasteland there was an extremely evil tree, the 10,000 bone-devouring soul tree. That tree was an evil tree that grew out of countless skeletons. It was a living evil tree. Such an evil tree was too sinister. Even the demon clan would not dare to casually live near it. Of course, besides the Nethercrow clan, the underworld Raven clan absorbed death energy to increase their cultivation, and they even had the saying of Death's clone. This place was forbidden to other demons, but it was the best place for them to live. Crack! In the silent wasteland, a crisp cracking sound suddenly rang out. Following the sound, they saw Sakura had already descended from the sky and stepped on a withered bone. The withered bone couldn't withstand his weight and broke into several pieces in an instant. It was broken. The bone marrow in this dried bone had basically dried up. I wonder where the bones of my tiger clan can be found in the desolation of bones? Di Shirtian scanned the surroundings. There were dried bones everywhere. Of course, there were also incomplete bones. The complete ones could also be seen. Piles of white bones were presented in front of him. It was simply innumerable. From the many incomplete bones, he could see that many of them were the bones of various animals and bird. There were big ones and small ones. Many of them were more than 100 feet tall. They were probably some powerful ferocious beasts when they were alive. In front of him, there were even soul-devouring trees formed by skulls. In the eye sockets of those skulls, there was a faint green flame staring at him, making him feel a chill in his heart. A chill rushed directly from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Fortunately, it was not Di Shirtian's first time here. His heart sank. He took a deep breath. His eyes shone brightly. He reached out and patted his storage bag lightly. Suddenly, there was a flash of spiritual light and an ancient compass appeared in his hand. On the surface, this compass looked similar to the feng shui compasses used by feng shui masters. However, in the compass there were 3 pointers of different length. From long to short, they were bronze, silver, and golden. There were small talismans on each of the pointers. In the middle of the compass there was a sparkling white jade bead. It faintly emitted a white jade light, revealing a strange power. Embedded in the compass, it could be said to be natural without the slightest gap. It was as if it was born to be fused together. All around the compass, there were various mysterious patterns engraved. This compass was none other than a strange treasure that de Chertion had obtained in the Tiger Hill Mountains, the psychic compass. This compass was a treasure that could be used to search for treasures. In the past few years, he had carefully studied the use of the compass and had secretly inquired about it in the Music Valley. Only then did he know the true use of the compass. It could be said that it was a first-class treasure when used to search for treasures. After quickly placing the original high-grade fire spirit stone on the compass, de Chertion took out a tiger bone that he had obtained when he met Hua Wenwu. He cut a small piece and placed it in his hand. Immediately, the originally hard tiger bone turned into a fine powder. He sprinkled the tiger bone powder evenly on the compass. Whoosh! The talismans on the compass quickly flashed with spiritual light. Of the 3 pointers in the center of the compass, the third and second pointers began to spin quickly. The pointers emitted bursts of bronze and silver light and quickly spun. One had to know that in this psychic compass, the 3 pointers all had different powers. Now only 2 of the pointers could move. They were the bronze and silver pointers. To use the compass, one must be supported by a spirit stone. A mid-grade spirit stone could support the compass to use the first psychic needle to search for things with spiritual energy within a mile. A high-grade spirit stone could use the second psychic needle. The second needle could search within a 10-mile radius. De Chertion used a high-grade fire spirit stone, so he could use 2 of them. Once the pointers moved, they could search for all treasures within a 10-mile radius. As long as there was a treasure in any direction, the pointers would point to the treasure's location. However, there was another way to use the psychic compass. For example, if one wanted to search for a certain item, such as a spiritual wood, then one only needed to grind a small part of the spiritual wood into powder and sprinkle it on the pointers in the center of the compass. The pointers would then emit the spiritual wood's aura and specifically search for the whereabouts of the spiritual wood. This method was more precise. De Chertion wanted to find the bones of the tiger clan. Hence, he had ground a small part of the tiger bone into powder and sprinkled it on the compass. This way, the compass would guide him to the whereabouts of the tiger clan's bones. If one followed the compass, they would definitely be able to easily find the tiger clan's bones. There's not much time left before the opening of the Sky Fae Mystic Realm. I have to refine a portable weapon. Back then, I said that I wanted to refine a weapon from the tiger clan's bones so that it could accompany me in battle. If I want to refine a weapon, the number of bones needed would definitely not be small. I'm afraid that I can only find all of them in the withered bone wilderness. Fortunately, I have the psychic compass with me. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I would have to spend a lot of time searching. Holding the compass in his hand, Sakra carefully stared at the direction where the needle in the compass rotated as he pondered inwardly. After his conversation with Chen Shi in the Centauria Valley, his desire for a weapon had reached its peak. Although the 7 Sins demonic zither was not bad, it was not suitable for close combat. In the Cave of Heritage, he had also learned that the path of ancient demon cultivation had always been extraordinary in battle. As the demon body grew stronger, there would be even greater potential in weapons. According to records, ancient demon cultivation was strong because of one's overall development, and the other was because of their demon body that constantly grew stronger. It was rumored that the martial cultivators among the human race were created with the help of the demon body. The purpose of martial cultivators was to refine their body into a martial body. The stronger the martial body, the stronger their strength would be until they reached the supreme state of an indestructible physical body. Martial cultivators could be said to be the most powerful type of cultivators among the immortal cultivators. However, the reference point for the creation of their cultivation techniques was the powerful demon body of the ancient demon clan. The monstrous body obtained from walking the ancient monstrous cultivation path would be extremely powerful. Compared to martial cultivators, it would have a natural advantage. It could be said that every ancient demon cultivation was the most powerful martial cultivator. Martial cultivators were strong in their physical bodies, close combat, and weapons. For an ancient demon cultivator, a good weapon was a treasure that could allow him to unleash his full power. Their combat strength could be increased by 30% or even 50% or 60% in an instant. Therefore, de Chertion already had the idea of refining his own weapon. Now, he could not wait to leave the Centauria Valley. He did not go to other places, nor did he go to the Myriad Demon Valley. He directly rushed to the Withered Bone Wilderness for no other reason than to find enough tiger bones here and then return. He wanted to refine his second natal demon weapon. He had already thought of this weapon long ago. Among all kinds of weapons, the one he was most comfortable with was the saber. Therefore, this time, he wanted to refine a saber. Legend had it that in Huaxia mythology, the demon god Jiuyu's weapon was a saber. Moreover, that saber was called Tiger Soul. Its power was so strong that it could destroy heaven and earth. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.